don't have to fight, we don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no, we don't have to fight.
Hello, welcome back to Just Chill with Oliver George. We are episode 15 now. I'm so excited I can't even freaking think right now, but I'll do the basic shit first. Subscribe, you guys, please, if you haven't, and if you already have, thank you so much. If you're hearing us audio only through Spotify or something like that, come and check us out on YouTube and see what we look like, you know? Contact info. If you got a cool guest idea or you just want to give some feedback, that's justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. Now, to intro my guest. This is just insanity because 24 hours ago or so, this was not a thing, and now here you are. I feel like I have to, since we're recording in a basement, I got to quote Wayne Campbell here and say, we're not worthy.
Oh, stop it. Hey, man.
The great George Stroumboulopoulos is here.
You're kind to say it. Thank you. Hey, nice to see you. Yeah, you commented on a YouTube, on an Instagram post yesterday, depending on when this airs, and and you said whenever you're in Ottawa, and I'm like, dude, I'm in Ottawa tomorrow.
And I thought you were kind of just fucking with me or something, but I was like, this would be
Which
cruel.
is something I would do, but not be cruel, but I would be like, hey, if I can, I can. And then you and your pops were gracious enough to pick me up at the airport today and bring me
honor,
here.
man.
My event is until 6:45 in the morning, which is so early. And I just thought, before I head back or check into the hotel, let's do this.
And we appreciate it so much, and whatever time you can afford us.
I'm here, man. Whatever you need.
Before we get started, I do got to say apologies to Janelle Niles for bailing on the show tonight. Everyone go see Comedy at Eddie's. It's a great show. She always gets local comedians, lets new people try out new stuff. She's just a great person. So thanks, Janelle. Sorry about this, but I think you understand. So, man, I just want to start by talking about how you got your start. I know you did radio first, but you first came on my radar when I was a teenager and you were doing the MuchMusic gig.
Okay.
So first I want to say just like how influential you were to me. Even like the fashion I was wearing. If you had like a chain hanging from your pocket,
which I
I'd
did,
be doing it like the week later. You got your lip pierced, I got my liprette, that kind of stuff.
That's
but
funny.
I wanted to ask about the MuchMusic period was, what did you learn during that period as far as interviewing people? Because I have to imagine that was some of your biggest exposure to like big names and stuff like that.
It was. I started, I think my first radio job was in 1992. And my first TV job was in 1995 or 6. Okay. And then I got the MuchMusic thing at the end of the 90s, so 1999, when I started working. In fact, I would have been there 20 years ago now, in January, February.
Just passed.
Because I was prepping, getting ready for my first show to air in April of 2000. I learned a ton about interviewing at that point because all of my interviewing experience before that was radio. And I actually think that that's what positioned me to have a chance of succeeding in TV and having a chance of succeeding in MuchMusic, because if you think about those MuchMusic VJs and hosts, they were the original influencers pre-social media.
That's true.
Anything from fashion to music taste. And the truth is, MuchMusic was a really inclusive place, so everybody who had run home from school found something they could like. And I know a lot of people, like I didn't watch MuchMusic growing up because I didn't have cable, but also MuchMusic didn't play the kind of music that I liked, except when there was a metal show on. So when I got to Much and they offered me the new music, that was the show that I did watch because it was on a free TV channel called City TV in Toronto. When they offered me the job to host the new music, I said I would do it, but my condition was I got to host Loud.
And you did the punk show too, right?
Well, then I started doing Loud, and what happened was there was no punk show on MuchMusic, so I went to the bosses, who never watched any of the shows I made anyway, and I just said to them, I'm playing a lot of punk videos on the metal show, so I think you should give me a punk show. And they're like, yeah, whatever, cool. And we started the punk show, and that's how it started. And so
that was
punk
a great show.
It was really fun, and that show was super DIY. I would honestly, I had a camera that I signed out of MuchMusic. I think I still have it, actually. And I would go, I'd walk down the street to a bar around the corner from my house, or a little club, which is now a furniture store, but it was the place where all the punk bands would be, and even the metal bands. And I would just pick a kid and go, hey, can you film this, please? And I would hand them the camera, and I would do the interviews with the bands, and then I would turn the camera around and showcase the kids who were in the band, and then I would go home to my computer, and I would just put the TV on, and I would edit it. I didn't know how to edit, and it was pre-YouTube, so there was no way to learn how to edit unless you just figured it out.
Yeah.
So I just sat there.
Yeah,
and I taught myself how to edit a show. And I brought that show to MuchMusic, and I handed it to this guy called the Doctor, Michael Emberley, who's still is an amazing editor. And I handed it to Michael, and he inserted the videos that I asked for, and boom. And then I would take the tape, go downstairs to the MuchMusic Master Control, hand it to the cat, and then he would put it in and press play, or she would put it in and press play. Or even they would put it in and press play. And the idea was that it was super punk, man, because it was just myself and a couple of punk kids who happened to be around would just make a show. And that's how we did it all the time. So I learned how to make television by just trying to make television. And I think that taught me a lot about how to interview and how to present myself on the air.
Well, and you let those people that were looking for that kind of music have a place where they could actually go on mainstream television and be like, oh, other people like punk. Cool.
You know the band The Flatliners? Punk Canadian
I've heard
band,
of them.
Yeah. They were one of the like band of teenagers that would be our camera operators who went on to sell lots of records and have tons of videos and play tons of tours. 18 years old, I'm 41. Did stuff with them at the time. Even Simple Plan. I think I played Simple Plan on the radio when they were 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah, they had a young start.
Yeah, but they didn't have a song on the radio before. They didn't even have an album. I just heard a song. This woman I know, this kid came in and goes, hey, this is my friend's band. They just recorded this track. I played it. It was that song, I'm Just a Kid. Boom, they get signed, and then they have their amazing career. Their Simple Plan are great. So all these bands kind of came out of this little punk and metal world, back in that late 90s, early 2000s. It was a really cool time for music in Canada.
Well, and you used to get cool videos popping up on Music Plus a lot, I would find, too. A lot more sort of...
Oh, yeah, I guess if you're growing up here, you would have had Music Plus.
Yeah.
We didn't have Music Plus.
They had some good shows. I saw some good punk and ska and stuff on there, too.
There was a woman called Anne-Marie Wittenshaw who was a great host, and the two of us would overlap on interviews all the time. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, while we're on Much Music, I did want to ask a couple things. One being, what do you think about the weird shift that happened with Much Music and MTV, where they just started playing reality TV and music videos fell off the face of the earth?
They did, but you know what? That's really the audience's fault, because the audience just decided for a while they wanted to watch other people gossip about each other, and that's the gig.
Well, and you could see the music videos on YouTube. That must have been part of it too, right? There was another source.
Well, music videos didn't even happen until the mid-2000s. Like YouTube didn't start till 2004, right? It didn't really take off till 2005.
That's true.
And I think what happened was when I worked for Much Music, it was a family run. It was owned by a company, Chum, but it was a family run business. I could go upstairs and see the owner of the company, and I would often go visit, and we'd talk about business or whatever. And then they all got sold off to these big companies, and then these big companies don't really have owners; they have shareholders, and it's a very different kind of thing. And so I think the culture was gone. And I think at Much Music at the time, there was a real mentality of where we were the defenders of the faith. Like, it was important to us to share music to people, but not just share music. It was important to us to create a space where people could feel welcome and included. That was really important to us. If you watch Much Music, there was nobody on TV making you feel badly about who you were.
That's very true.
And most TV doesn't do it.
Oh, and the VJs were diverse as well.
They were super diverse, but diverse
Master
ideas.
T and
but just diverse ideas, diverse music, but everybody was welcome. Everybody was welcome. We were doing stories about trans kids in the late 90s, early 2000s, and because it was important for everybody to know you're safe here. And what happened with the onslaught of reality television and where people went, even though there was more visibility for some groups, it was still very judgmental, very closed off. It wasn't as inclusive a place. It was more gnarly, more nasty. And Much wasn't really like that at the time. It was a really nice little window. We had a hell of a run. I feel like we were on the golden age of television. That the VJ crew before us into ours, we just had this really sweet little run where we were around some really lovely bands and really lovely family-oriented feels.
My brothers and I used to piss ourselves laughing when Weird Al would come and turn it into Al music, and he would murder the VJ with like cyanide or something.
It was amazing. Al, I just randomly was walking down the street, speaking of what we were talking about earlier, and I bumped into Al on the street. And we talked about those little days. He's like, it was amazing how much would just let him come up.
And he would do those faux interviews where he would splice himself into like an existing interview, and those were genius.
He's incredible. Weird Al Yankovic was amazing.
The one with Paul McCartney was probably my favorite one ever. Just, Paul, would you like to come bowling? We're going bowling after the show. And then he cuts to Paul being like, well, that would just be like amazing. Awesome. He's like, it's just bowling, Paul.
Al got it, man. Al got it. But that's the thing. Much was super free. You were able to do things like that back then. It was a really special time.
And now it's gone.
Yeah, I suspect. I mean, it still exists. I know that they do play some videos, but they cut it down.
It's a shell of what it once was, though.
It's a different thing, right? It's a different thing, and the audience doesn't go there. I actually think there's room for something like that again, which is something that we're kind of working on now.
Oh, nice.
But it's
Can't say too much, I assume.
No. In fact, the thing I'm trying to pull off in the next few months, which will be pretty insane if we can do it, and it will upset some people. but it will embolden others, and I'm excited about it. I can't
Keep
tell you
your
anything
eyes
about
and
it. Though.
ears
Yeah.
open,
Oh, you'll
yeah.
know. Follow me on Instagram because that's where it's going to launch, and it's going to be really intense.
I was going to say, obviously follow him if you're not already, but speaking of your radio start, you do still have a show on CBC, so check that
I
out.
still do on CBC Music Sunday nights at 8:00.
The Strombo show.
Strombo show.
Which I thought was weird. I noted to my dad that whenever you abbreviate to Strombo, you take out that first U.
Yeah,
it makes
'cause
sense,
I
I guess.
I didn't even name myself Strombo. A bunch of people just started calling me Strombo. And then when I was writing it down, I looked at it and I went, it looks better with just the O.
Because other people, if you wrote it the other way, people are going to say Strumbo.
Strumbo, yeah, for sure.
You don't need to be called Strumbo. That sounds a little...
And a nickname is a nickname. You can always mess with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, first off, I got to say, you are, I wanted to let you know that you're in my top 3 hosts that I truly admire and that really inspire me to try to be the best host that I can, with your company being Conan O'Brien and Dick Cavett.
Right.
Those are probably my top 3.
I don't know if but thank you.
Well, here's why. Because in my opinion, the 3 of you just excel at making people feel comfortable. And that's something that I think I have somewhat of a knack for. And it's just something I've always respected, getting people to open up and really feel like they're talking to a friend, you know? So
thank you.
To follow up, though, I wanted to know what hosts were your biggest inspirations. And
when I was growing up, I was watching a guy called Dave Allen. Dave Allen he was an Irish guy who did a British show, an English show, and I think it was called Dave Allen at Large.
BBC, I'm guessing?
Yep. I was very young, and he used to basically go on and do really intense religious commentary, and he'd call out the church. And as a young kid, even when I was really young, I recognized that rebellion was where I was going to go. I didn't even have a word for it.
I can relate to that.
But I knew that was the thing,
Yeah.
right? And you can relate. So
I put my parents through a bunch of shit.
yeah, my
Partying
mom,
and shit,
Yeah. So I just knew I was going to rebel. So Dave Allen was a big part. When I was a real young kid, it was Kermit the Frog watching the Muppet Show.
Hey, we got guns over here.
There you know.
That's
So
my spirit animal.
He hosted the Wildest Show, right? He hosted the Wildest Show, the Muppet Show, and all the madness behind the scenes. So I loved Kermit the Frog. That was when I was really young.
Definitely, I was going to say not the answer I was expecting.
Yeah, well, I mean, but really my biggest influences in terms of what I do were Chuck D,
Okay.
George Carlin, Joe Strummer, and Patti Smith. So it wasn't really TV hosting, because I actually, to be honest with you, never thought I was going to be on television. I never planned on being on television. I never wanted to be on television. I never thought about being on television.
You just thought the radio thing was...
Even that I didn't think I was going to be. I thought I was going to be an artist, an architect, a graphic designer, something like that. Visual art was my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you were telling us you used to draw comics and
Yeah,
stuff.
and then I got booted out of art classes. The art teacher wouldn't let me take the classes anymore. And in order... I don't have any idea how the education system works now in Ontario in terms of credits, but back then I needed an arts credit to graduate. Oh. And the only 2 options we had were visual art and drama. And drama was the last class I wanted to take.
Really, eh?
Oh, I had no interest in it at all.
Interesting. Because to me, you're like somewhat of a performer, entertainer.
No, never was, man. I was so caught up in music. That was music and motorcycles from my whole life. That's all I really cared about. So I thought I could get a job as an overnight radio DJ, but drama never. The idea of being on stage was death to me.
Really?
Zero interest in it. Yeah.
And the scripted part of it too, probably. You seem like someone who goes off script and likes to be kind of organic.
I don't want to. Scripts are like I like scripts when I'm acting because I think it's fun to work with other people's art and help them see their vision through.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But there are some radio stations where there's a person who writes the script that the DJ is going to say.
Oh, God.
And it happens all over the place. And I walked into a studio once and saw that, and I remember thinking, well, that's super foreign to me. You mean, don't you know what you're going to say? It's good to have notes and write this, even to write your own script. But the fact that somebody else was handing you something to say just seemed like... it just didn't it didn't vibe with me.
Seems almost like an antithesis to what you're doing, right?
What I want about. Yeah, because I grew up listening to radio in the 70s and 80s, right, where you were expected to have something to say, and the something you said, the something to say had to be meaningful, or it had to be absolutely mental. And that worked too, right? If you were going to be way over the line, way dangerous or whatever, cool, but be you. And what I never liked and I never respected was the robot radio.
That's we're back. Like that kind of shit.
If you're going to be that person, then just be out of your mind. Yeah. I can respect that. But I didn't like that WNBC, that stuff that Pigface.
Coming up after the break.
That kind of shit.
It just was my thing. It's like, what are you about? Why are you on the radio?
It sound like people.
Well, in theory, radio and television are the public airwaves. In theory, we license them to companies. Now, that's only partly true because the CRTC is mostly super weak in this country, and they really work on behalf of the broadcasters. But really, they're supposed to work on behalf of us. And so if you were given a microphone, access to a transmitter, well, you better be about something. I'm not saying it's all serious all the time. It doesn't even have to be serious, but you got to connect with people.
Yeah.
And when it became just bullshit commercial broadcasting, good for them. Go make your paper, get your bags. But for me, it was just like, no, that's not interesting. Like, it's, again, go do your thing, but it's not interesting to me at all. So I kind of went down a different path.
Well, you've always been someone that strikes me as being very genuine, so that makes a lot of sense that wouldn't appeal to you.
For better or for worse, you know, it's helped my career and then it's not helped my career. But I don't really care because my career is not as interesting to me as my life is. Like, do I like where I'm going? Cool. If it works or doesn't work in a career sense, who cares?
Yeah, there's always the next step after that. Yeah.
Most career-based stuff is so based on ego anyway, and I don't want to subscribe to that kind of thing. You know, I want to be in a different world.
Oh, if you were super, one of those types of people that we're sort of describing, you wouldn't be here right now. That's for fucking sure.
That's true.
We got like 75 subscribers.
No,
so,
that's okay, man. 75 people who are paying attention to you.
Yeah.
That's important.
No,
right?
I'm not trying to. I appreciate
Yeah.
you guys, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's easy to get discouraged with how saturated the market is for this kind of thing. How many podcasts are there? How many YouTube?
There's a reason why I haven't done a podcast. There's a reason why I haven't done one. Even when we started kicking around early podcasts, before podcasts had even taken off, and I just thought, no, you know what? I don't really. Now we have 3 that are ready to go, but they're very different, and I was waiting for the right kind of thing.
Well, you also have a radio show, so your
radio
need for a
show.
podcast is somewhat diminished
I had a
compared to.
TV show. I do live streams. Like, I have a different kind of experience for sure. But the thing with the podcast, though, which I think is interesting, it doesn't matter how many there are out there. Just do the thing for you, and who cares who listens.
And that's where the real joy for me for this has been coming from. Besides being able to spend more time with my dad, and
Which
really
is super cool.
It's been an amazing experience for us to be able to just be on the same page and creating something together.
Yeah.
But just being able to do my own thing and kind of call the shots and bring on whoever I want. I don't care if it's George Stroumboulopoulos or the janitor. If you've got, everyone has a fucking story. Everyone's got something you can learn and share, and
100%.
So your show, probably a lot of people know you from The Hour. And from which later switched names to George Stroumboulopoulos Tonight.
Yeah.
So first of all, wicked show. I used to watch this show all the time when I was a security guard, which a job I didn't really care for, and that was a nice sort of beacon in the middle of the night where I'd be like, all right, sweet. But one thing I found interesting that I wanted to ask you about was when they reduced the time from an hour to a half hour.
Yeah.
What was that transition like when you'd gotten used to having an hour with your guest?
That's just a lot easier.
Oh, really?
There's a lot. It's harder in one respect, because you have to fit more stuff into a shorter time.
Well, less time to build a rapport is what I was.
Well, yeah. Oh, well, with the interviews, it was actually okay because we would just cut an interview out. So instead of doing 2 or 3 a show, we would do 1, right? 1.5. So we actually gave more time to one guest. But the CBC was, CBC is always going through something, and they were, local news, and news was going to extend and all this other stuff. Then they asked me to fill in at 7:00 because they didn't have a show for 7, and then I'm like, but I want 11, and so it was always a strange kind of thing, certainly in the later years at CBC. But dropping to a half an hour was, for me, it was just. Did I like going to work with my friends and making the show, having a meaningful conversation and moving on? I liked that. It was different when the show was called The Hour, and all of a sudden we were a half an hour show, and somebody at CBC said, let's just keep the name The Hour. And I remember saying, can't do that.
Good Lord. And the half an hour doesn't sound.
Half an hour doesn't sound as good yet, for sure. But there was so much stuff going on behind the scenes there anyway that it's always, CBC, it's always in a funding crisis of some sort. And
Canadian broadcasting.
and it'll always affect the programming.
Yeah, well, that's sad, but hopefully
it's like
you guys pull through. There's still a lot of good stuff coming out of the CBC.
Look, I've had my ups and downs with CBC over the years. I have lots of great things to say about them and lots of things that aren't that great that I won't say. But what I do recognize is that so much of what it does is so fundamentally important. And we have a lot of good media in this country, and part of the reason why it's really good is because CBC News keeps it honest in a lot of ways. Corporate media is a dangerous thing, unchecked. I think that our corporate media in Canada isn't what it is in the U.S. It's not as bad, but it's going to get there because that's how we just go down that road anyway.
Yeah. The corruption's going to get here.
Yeah,
eventually.
but CBC is important, man. I've always said this, that I think when it's doing it right, it's the intellectual railroad and emotional railroad of this country. Mm-hmm. They were the only network that was, coast to coast to coast and was in multiple languages, and it's a big thing and it's important. I think that if the CBC, and look, and I'm not a shill for the CBC because I have a radio show with them, but I've always been my own person.
For sure, yeah.
If you lose the CBC, you lose a lot. You lose a lot more than people think you lose. But our country is becoming kind of boring in its partisanship and unhelpful in its partisanship. And so I think CBC's got a big road ahead of them, but they do really important things. And they make Canadian shows. They employ Canadian people.
Well, as a comedian, I know they just put out a new show from these comedians. I think they're all out of Toronto, but it's called Tall Boys.
I've seen the billboards.
I've seen a couple clips on Instagram. It seems pretty funny,
There
but
you
it's
go.
just nice that they're helping, Canadian comics get out there like that.
sure.
I was going to say in relation to the show, which was on for 9 years.
10.
I thought it was 9.
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did my research wrong, apparently.
No. 10 years. Isn't that crazy?
Or I'm just suck at math. So what was the best interview, or the best interview? That's kind of hard to say, but what were some of the favorite interviews, and what did you learn from those interviews? And, just what was the most positive kind of interview that you had?
I think I interviewed a woman called June Colwood, who was a social activist in Toronto, and she's kind of a legend in the game. And
My dad was nodding his head, yeah.
Yeah. When she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, she wanted to do one interview before she passed. And so she had reached out and said, "Hey, could you guys do the interview?" And I remember thinking, I don't, like, you have lots of friends who are journalists, maybe they should. And she said, no, you do it.
What an honor, honestly.
Yeah, I felt it for
tragic,
sure. I felt it for sure. What her reasoning was, it was related to me, was that when the interview went dark, I wouldn't be afraid of it because I didn't know her. And
That's a huge compliment then too.
Well, I took it as such, and thank you. But it was also it was more of a big responsibility to me. Do this right. So we did that interview, and that interview was kind of a big moment for us on the show. In terms of the more celebrity stuff, I think getting an hour with Tom Cruise was a big moment. Wow, and it was really hard for us to book big name Canadian artists because Canadian artists weren't that helpful. They weren't supportive in the early days for us, and that's very typical for it was certainly back then for Canada. But Tom Cruise came on, and then other people told me, other guests we would book later said Tom told us to do the show, and so Tom was a big part of how we kind of turned a corner.
Maybe we'll get some George told us to do the shows.
Let's see how it
future,
goes.
but,
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. It's great.
Not get ahead of myself here, but no, Tom Cruise is one of those hugely prolific people that probably doesn't even feel real when you're talking to him at first. But
biggest star of our time, man.
Yeah, well, he grew up around here too.
Yeah,
he
that's
went
right.
to Robert Hopkins for elementary.
That's right. We talked about that. We talked about being in Ottawa for him, and how different his life would have been had he stayed.
And he had a different last name, didn't he?
He might have. Yeah,
I think his name was Maypother was his last name.
Yeah, and it was something about his father. I don't.
I'm not sure the reasoning. I just know that he had I think it was a cousin, and I don't remember the first name, but he had a small bit role on the show Lost. Yeah. And I remember seeing Maypother and figuring it out at some point.
That's pretty great. Yeah. Tom's a great guy. I liked him a lot.
Okay, I'm going to do this because I was trying to keep it to very generic questions, but you told me on the way here, ask whatever. Man.
Yeah.
So upon leaving the hour and then ultimately George Stroumboulopoulos tonight, you went to Hockey Canada.
Hockey Night in Canada, that's right.
So I just kind of wanted to know what you thought about the whole Don Cherry situation and also what it was like working with him. But if you don't want to comment on that, I totally understand.
I am surprised this was the thing that brought the end of Don Cherry.
That's what I've been saying.
Don Cherry has said far more controversial things on the show. I think there's two things that have happened. Again, I know a lot of the people involved, but Don is Don, and Don represents an enormous part of this country. There are a lot of people that agree with Don, and for a long time, those people were in charge. Those people aren't in charge anymore, and you can see it. Look at the way the Conservative Party's ad campaigns are generally, and how Andrew Scheer ran the last campaign. Mm-hmm. He was running on a different version of Canada, and that Canada's not there anymore. But they're trying to bring it back.
Yeah, there's some people who want to revert to that.
Peter MacKay just put out his big post about how pride parades are important, and whether or not he's the leader, he'll be there at the next one. That's a big shift. That's because huge. He recognizes as much as there's a part of Canada that is that OG, old school Canada, not OG, because OG is about like changing things. Yeah. But the old school Canada, Peter MacKay and whoever else, he sees there needs to be a different path. So what I'm saying is times are different. And here's something else that's fundamentally different. The person that's in charge of Rogers now, who laid the hammer down to Don, as I knew him, I'm not close with him by any means. I didn't really work with him. He wasn't there when I was there. Like, he wasn't in charge. There's a guy called Bart. Bart, at his core, is a decent person. And I'm sure when Don Cherry said that thing on the show, I don't know, I wasn't there. It's not that he didn't like the controversy. I think he just would have thought that's just not who we are as a people. Don has always been really nice to me. Don and I do not see eye to eye on most things about this country, and we certainly do not see eye to eye on most things about hockey. And Don and I would scrap it out at Hockey Night Canada, always respectfully. I respect my elders, right, in some respects. And I've known Don since I was 21 years old. So I've known Don a long time.
Yeah.
Long before I was on television, I knew Don Cherry.
How did you meet him then?
I met him when I was working behind the scenes as a technical operator at a radio station, and he would come in on Saturdays with Brian Williams to record that Grapevine show, whatever it's called.
Grapevine, yeah.
Yeah, and there was the radio version. And
Okay.
Don and Rose used to come in. You know, I knew them. So I've known him since I was a kid, a young person, right? And it does me no good to sit here, but I've said, like, I've disagreed with Don, and we've talked about it on the air. Like, but who cares? We see things differently. I was surprised that this was the thing, though. I was like, okay, yes, what he said, I absolutely disagree with. Mm-hmm. So do a lot of people, but this was the one.
But he had said, I heard on the radio lots of things about, you know, women in hockey and many other controversial things that were equally, or at least similarly.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. All he did was represent an enormous part of the hockey culture. And hockey people want to go out there and go, that's not who we are. Bullshit.
Yeah, they're just getting called out now. Yeah.
Bullshit. It's been an enormous part of your culture. An enormous part of your culture. But what happens is not the only part of the culture.
Of course.
Tons of progressive views and tons of progressive movements in hockey. But
it was undeniably a part of it, yeah.
Huge part of it. Mm-hmm. A huge part of it. But not just Don. Like, I'm talking about the people who ran the networks. I'm talking about the producers. Like, that's sports culture. That's hockey culture. Do you think you're really getting journalism in sports? Like, really? You're getting a couple of people who are standouts. But anybody who works for a big company generally, like, I saw it with my own eyes, man. You're basically, they would always say, we're partners with the leagues. What does that mean?
Sounds sketchy.
It just means that you're doing their bidding.
Yeah.
And they'll, you know, like, again, but here's the thing, man. That's what most of the audience wants. Most of the audience wants, just make it straightforward and let me get mad at you. That's what the audience wants. They want to get mad at you for your position on, I mean, look, as a Montreal Canadiens fan, the team sucks and has sucked for a long time.
What, the Leafs?
The Habs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Habs fan.
Oh, no, I thought you were just saying the Leafs suck.
No, but the Leafs have sucked absolutely for a long time. The Senators are a terrible hockey team.
Yeah.
And have been for a long time. Each one of our teams has a flash.
Yeah, like when we went to the finals against Calgary or
Anaheim.
Like
I remember I was here watching a game long before I worked at Hockey Night, and so in our part of the country, our teams stink, and our whole experience with hockey is to be disappointed. That's our whole experience. Yeah. Once you get past 11. Right, where oh my God, it's my favorite player. Once you get past that, it's just disappointment. Now I love that because it's the gig. I love hockey. I'm down for the disappointment. This is what it's like. But that just translates on television. That translates on everything, right? So it's not. We don't really have the kind of hockey culture that I think people think we do. Mm-hmm. You know, and I say that as a guy who's an enormous fan, but as a guy who worked and hosted Hockey Night in Canada. Not that many people have hosted Hockey Night. I was in there. I saw the culture. So the Don Cherry thing, it's like, again, I don't know the conversations between him and Barton or whomever he spoke to, but I just do know this, is that Don represented himself. Mm-hmm.
He was doing what he had always basically
done.
Yeah.
I think he thinks that people misunderstood what he meant, but like regardless of that, he wasn't going to apologize. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's where he messed up, but maybe it was time for him to go just because he's getting old. I
don't know.
You know how
I don't mind old guys on TV though. Old ladies on TV, I'm down. Bring it on. Old men, old women, bring them on. I think we should have old people on. I mean, what's old, right?
No.
Time is a construct, right? Time is a construct. We don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That to me, it's no. I mean,
I think because there were certain people that were arguing that what he had said might have been because he was getting up there and getting more senile moments where he's just
I would never. I don't know that. I don't know if Don's pretty sharp, okay. But I will say this. I know a lot of young people who wear MAGA hats. And really? I know a lot, of course. I
guess you go to the States a lot more than
that. Yeah, and I know a lot of people in their 70s and 80s who are mortified by racism. I think it's more about a mindset that exists. And Canada is a relatively young country, and hockey has been controlled by the same four people in the last since the advent of sports television. The same four people have essentially controlled TSN, Sportsnet, and
Really,
Hockey Night Canada.
Just 4?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. So they have dictated what hockey culture is going to be, and I'm not mad at it. I don't care because I don't expect TV or sports coverage to reflect my values. But this is growing up listening to punk rock. I have never expected television to reflect my values, and I don't get mad when it doesn't reflect my values. I didn't grow up believing in institutions. I don't believe in any of it. I don't believe in the government. I believe that it exists, but I don't believe that it's on our side. I never did. I don't believe that networks are on our side.
Well, we were talking about this on the drive over, just trusting Google and any large corporation.
They're not on our side. And we have to work for them sometimes and get your bags, get whatever you need to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I'm not outraged when people say things on television because what did you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Especially from him. That's what I was kind of saying.
Or
It
from
doesn't make what he
from
said
anybody.
right, but...
Yeah. But, I mean, like I said, the thing about television and radio is, and not the internet, and this is the one thing that the internet has working in its favor, but ultimately against it, is that there is no institutional expectation. So when the market decides you're out of step, the market decides you're out of step. That's the same market that had you in step for a long time, or you were in vogue. And once they decide you're not, you're not. It's not promised to you forever, and that's the game.
Yeah, if you're slippery situation, you never know. Yeah.
But no one's entitled to this forever.
That's true.
Right? I think you have to, what are your core values and what do you want to represent? Don, when we used to, I remember once Don, something happened, he came into the control room, or he came into the studio when I was on, and he was mad. And I could see, it's like, oh shit, something's going to go on. So I walked up to him, but everybody, and I will say this, a lot of people at Hockey Night Canada didn't want to cross paths with Don.
Intimidated, obviously.
Of course, because they were intimidated by him, right? And
his persona was very bombastic.
Yeah. And I saw it firsthand. Even though people when I took that job, I did a lot of watching, right? And you could just read the room a little bit. But when Don would come up, because I've known Don so long, I'd go right up to him and I'd be like, whoa, hold on. He's like, listen, I've been on the air for 30 years. And I'd be like, I've been on the air for 25. And then as soon as I would say that, he'd laugh, right? And then I'd be like, what's the issue? What are we dealing with here? And we would figure it out. And so, again, I disagree with a lot of what he says. I disagree with almost all of his positions when he talks politics. But I could communicate with Don.
And that's what's missing from the world, essentially, when people have different viewpoints and they can't at least not agree to disagree, but have a respectful conversation from a disagreeing vantage point.
Yeah, here's the challenge. I agree with you, but I agree with you sort of. Here's the challenge: is that when you have two white guys, like I'm a relatively white guy, and that I'm an ethnic, and Don's white. So Don's white and I'm ethnic. And, you heard this a lot when Joe Biden in the campaign talked about how he could work with both sides. But really what that meant was when he compromises, do you think Joe Biden ever compromised any of his rights? Of course not. He compromised the rights of young African Americans. He compromised the rights of women. So it's easy for Don and I to find common ground. We didn't find common ground in terms of what we believed in, but we knew how to communicate with each other. Because Don is actually is a good guy. Don's a good guy. At least he has been. Me knowing him. But it's important. I recognize that I would never in a million years have just been like, that's okay. I would go into the coach's corner office and say, yo, Don, come on. And I would see other people just kind of be like, And I'm just like, wow. But
don't poke the bear, yeah.
But it comes because I'm from CBC. I came from CBC where we had fucking standards. And I know people will go, oh, CBC, like, stop it. I've been on the air for 14 years at CBC. I can remember once being asked to reshoot something because of what I said on the air.
Wow.
Once.
What was that, if I can ask?
I said there was no Santa Claus.
Of all the things, I can understand, actually.
Producer came in and said, look.
We're going to get so many fucking emails.
Yeah, you can do it, but please not. Because let the parents tell the kids there's no Santa Claus. We don't, and it was, and I just kind of looked at them.
Both kids and parents would have hated you.
Yeah, and I looked at them and I went, yeah, that's a really good point. I'm not going to be the one that ruins your dream. Myths are important. Mythology is interesting. So I redid that. Like I would say stuff that I know the bosses don't like. I would say stuff that the prime minister didn't like, who was liberal, who was conservative, because that's the only two this country ever gives a shot to.
Yeah.
Right? And, we
very true.
Canadians are very smug, and
I voted NDP this year, man.
Oh, there you go. Canadians are very smug, man. They're always generally like, well, America's only a two-party system. We're like, really? What do we have here?
Yeah.
Don't fool ourselves. But I I learned at CBC that you have a responsibility to do the work, journalism, tell the truth, entertain the audience, but entertain isn't the trump card. It's not about entertainment by itself. Anybody can entertain by doing really crazy shit. There's a responsibility. There's a responsibility to talk to the audience, to connect with them. That was always very important to me. So when I got to hockey, I was like, whoa, this is a completely different culture. I knew it was going to be different. I didn't know it was going to be different in the ways it was. I had my suspicions. I don't have any, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because that's for another day.
Sure.
But this is who the country is in a lot of ways.
And you had to learn how to talk to those people, I guess.
I chose not to.
No.
Well, I know. I actually know. What's funny is actually my boss, who ended up, we didn't get along at the end. But the guy who was in charge said to me that when I was the host, I remember going out for lunch with him, and he said the ratings have gone up with women and people under 30 when I was the host.
Hey.
But the problem is
a little ego boost. Come on.
But the problem is they were listening to a lot of a certain generation who didn't like my skinny pants and would hurl homophobic slurs at me on the street. Oh, yeah, man.
That's
yeah. I know, like, the real hockey culture because I met them. And it's like, oh, that's a whole other... It never bothered me because I've slayed much bigger dragons than that in my life. That's the easy thing. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to... I want to be liked, but I don't need to be liked, and I think that's an important distinction. And I had a great time at the hockey thing, and it taught me a lot. And it actually set me up to be where I am now, which is where I really like where I am in my career. And this is where I run my own company, and I have deals with, places bigger than hockey, if you can imagine, in terms of like the companies. But I needed to go through that experience to learn it. I had it in an employee's mentality, right, my whole career, because I'd worked for networks.
Yeah.
Once that ended, I started my own company with my friends. I was like, oh, I have to learn this shit now. And it was really nice to be, 30 years into your career. And
freed from those shackles, kind of.
Freed, but also realizing, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. I got to learn this.
It's great, though.
Yeah, I love it.
Keeps you from getting bored, at least, yeah.
Never get bored. Never get bored in this business. Never.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue into another thing that you're doing right now, which is the House of Strombo, which is, first of all, super radical. Check it out if you haven't seen it. That's on YouTube, too.
It is on YouTube, that's right.
So that's where you have bands come and play in your living room.
Yeah.
So what's that been like? I mean, I feel like that question kind of is right
crazy.
there.
It's crazy. It's I'll get up in the morning. I'll go downstairs and I'll sweep the walkway to my house, like your path from the front your front door. And then Scott Weiland was standing there. He's like, "Hey man, can I use your bathroom?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally." And I just let him in.
Depends what he's doing in
there.
Super
weird, right? I'm like, "Oh, this is weird for me." Or I was there one day, and then an Uber pulls up, and out comes James Hetfield from Metallica, or John Prine comes and plays a concert in my living room, and Gordon Lightfoot comes over to watch. Gordon Lightfoot came, we just went through the passing of a really great person in Neil Peart, and
oh yeah,
Neil.
Rest in peace. Yeah,
absolutely.
Amazing lyricist too.
Amazing. Neil was in the house. Rush were in the house. The Cult were in the house. The Kills were in the house. Grandmaster Flash, Lee Scratch Perry, Paul Oakenfold in the house. Like,
doesn't even sound real.
It doesn't even sound real.
Good Lord.
Tool, Maynard was in the house.
It's like a jam session in heaven or something.
It's nuts, man. And I'm very grateful for it. I really am grateful for it.
Man, I gotta stop by your house sometime.
It's pretty fun. We have 4 in the works for the next 3 months. I think are going to happen.
Nice.
All punk based for the most part.
And you're in Toronto, right?
I will be for this. Yeah, I will be for this. And it's
because I'll come out, man.
Come whenever you want. Yeah, for sure. It's fun. I was walking down the street. I used to work at this radio station in Toronto called The Edge, and we used to have a storefront studio at 204 Yonge Street and then 228. I only know that because we kept saying live from 228 Yonge.
It's burnt in there, yeah.
Totally. So we did the show from there, but we had open doors, so people would come in, bands would come in, and kids would come in and hang out with us, especially ones who didn't want to go home after school, people who were interested in the arts, and they would just come hang around the DJs. And we would do interviews, and we'd have our show. We watched people grow up. We watched, people would come in when they were teenagers and watch them grow up and have kids of their own and come and hang out.
Awesome.
It was really lovely, really lovely. It was community, right? And then I went to MuchMusic, and MuchMusic a bit bigger and a little bit more national, but still community. We'd do a show with U2, and we'd shut down the street, and people would go, wow, Smashing Pumpkins, Foo Fighters, Lauryn Hill would play on the street. I remember the day.
So awesome.
Dude, I remember the day I was standing there Darby Wheeler and I, who I worked with for many years, he went on to make Hip Hop Evolution, that Netflix series.
I'm watching that right now, and that's
so
hosted by Shad, right?
Yeah, Shad. So
Yeah.
the producers, that Darby and Rodrigo, both worked on my talk show, and I met Rodrigo when I interviewed him for my TV show when I was on MuchMusic.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's a small little gang. But I remember Darby and I were standing there, and we had the side stage on the Saturday, not even the big stage. The side stage, this relatively new artist was going to rehearse a song, and I don't know, like 10, 15 people got up in their street clothes, and they looked like they were in a choir, but they weren't dressed. And it looked like the choir in the formation they took, right? And then this artist stands up, and all of a sudden, and this is like Saturday afternoon, for the MuchMusic VJs, MuchMusic Video Awards, and all we hear is boom, boom, Jesus Walks. And it was the first time any of us heard Jesus Walks from Kanye. And Kanye's sound checking it up there, and we were just stunned by this the quality of this song. But I remember people walking down the street and stopping. Well, what is this? One year, it was an afternoon, same thing, Saturday afternoon. Lenny Kravitz is playing American Woman on stage. He's rehearsing, just sound checking. Up walks the Guess Who, plugging their guitars, boom, bass, boom, boom, and they start figuring it out. And so Lenny and the Guess Who together are working out American Woman, and people walking down Queen Street in Toronto, stopping and looking. That community thing is a big part of.
Is there video of that? Because that'd be amazing.
I'm sure there is.
Jesus.
Yeah, there must be. Yeah, there must be. It was just sound check. But I remember just standing there in the parking lot. There was only a couple of us looking at this, thinking, "Well, this is amazing."
Yeah, we're seeing something
This
here.
is crazy.
Damn.
So I was in LA, and somebody walked up to me on the street, just a random person, and said, "I just watched your interview that I did with Stone Temple Pilots in a parking lot 15 years ago." And I was like, "Oh my God, I forgot about that concert." But audience was on the street watching. And so community has always been the most important thing to me in this game. Sharing music, but it only matters if someone else gets to hear it, right? So I was walking down Yonge Street a few years ago, past where the Edge used to be. It's boarded up. It doesn't exist as a station. A station exists, but they moved it, so it's not that anymore.
It's not there, yeah.
And I make a right-hand turn onto Queen Street. And it's the same neighborhood I've been walking in most of my life. I've been living in the same spot for decades. I live in a house now which is about 100 yards from places I used to get into fistfights in when I was 14, going to all ages clubs. Like
That's
it's
so rad.
Yeah, it's wow. So it's my hood, right? And I'm walking down this. Well, it's not my hood. It is a hood that I'm grateful to be a part of. And I'm walking down the street. So I passed the Edge and it's closed, and I passed by MuchMusic, and they had boarded up the windows as well because they have a new show in there, which I think is called The Social. And I'm not mad. It's not even about that show. I'm not mad at that show because the game has changed.
That's on City TV, I think, or something.
Is it? Yeah, I'm not even
I
sure.
don't know.
Yeah, but it's an important show. It's an important conversation show. But they do it in the place where the MuchMusic environment used to be, and I just thought, man, this was such an important place. Kids would come from all over the country to stand at that corner at Queen and John.
Or right up against the glass
Right
with
up
their
against the
posters
glass.
and
I remember
shit.
how many times I'd be walking. I'd ride my motorcycle down Queen Street, stop. I'd see some kids, they'd freak out and go, "Oh my God, do you know Rick Campanelli?" I'd go in and I'd say, "Yo, Rick, we used to call him Champ. Yo, Champ, there's a couple kids outside who'd love to meet you."
Some fanboys.
Every time Rick was like, "Absolutely."
He seems like a really nice guy.
Rick is a god. I believe that the greatest person, the hardest job in the most impressive job in Canadian television ever was Master T. Hosting the hip hop shows in MuchMusic was a very challenging job because the hip hop community was growing in Toronto. It's like punk. Like punk and hip hop are very similar in this respect. It's a lot of fans. If it doesn't break through, they question you. They question your motives. It's an important job. I think Master T is the greatest that ever been on MuchMusic. Master T.
He was awesome, yeah.
Awesome.
But just for helping find like underground artists and giving
But
them the
just like
spotlight?
owning that space. If you think about it, right, there were not a lot of black men on television.
No, not in a big way.
No, and certainly not in. I mean, you would see ex-athletes in sports, but to City TV and Moses Neimer respected our ethnicities, respected our nationalities, and Tony, Master T, was incredible. So he had the gig, and
Back to Rick, yeah.
Rick is the true Canadian Idol. It is hard to put into words how people felt about Rick when they saw him on the street. People would lose their fucking minds. Girls would lose their minds. The young guys would lose their minds. And he never disappointed. Rick was a leader of leaders. And Ed the Sock and I, and we both had, we were very lucky that we had a lot of people who liked what we were doing as well. Ed and I both knew, on a human level, because we love Rick, but also on a business level, Rick's the franchise. And Master T is the one who named Rick the franchise. So we did everything we could to big up Rick all the time because I think Rick's the greatest, to be honest with you. I think that we've never had anybody like him on television. We'll never have anybody like him on television again. The whole Rick the Temp moniker was hilarious because he had been there for so long.
Yeah, it was like a decade or something.
Yeah,
right?
and my last day on MuchMusic was Rick's last day.
Oh.
And I had such a respect and still do for Rick Campanelli that when I finished my last hit on Much News, all I was thinking about was that it was Rick's last day.
Wow.
Because Rick is the greatest. Bob and I wrote a scripted series that we want Rick to be in because I honestly think that people don't realize when we I get it, Ron and Don. I get a lot of accolades that I'm grateful for, but thankful. But honestly, lots of Kevin Newman, amazing. Peter Mansbridge, the king for sure. We have so many great hosts in this country. Sukyin Lee, well, she's actually she's like
Sukyin's awesome too.
Top drawer. Sukyin is so good too. But I'm just talking about like the matinee idol thing. Rick, there will never be anybody like the franchise.
Oh, and he was Canada's Entertainment Tonight guy too, right?
After MuchMusic, yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to get Rick. I've never told the story out.
It's an exclusive. Just chill exclusive.
I got offered a job at a show once, a big show.
Okay.
And I remember looking at the producer saying, I'm not the guy for the show. And they said, you're the guy for the show. It's going to pay me a lot of money. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be a big show. And I love the producers. But I remember saying, I could do this, but you should give this to Rick.
Wow.
And the guy said to me in the negotiation, I have never offered a job to somebody who tried to get somebody else the job.
Literally throwing yourself under the bus.
Because I said, Rick, I wanted Rick to succeed on every level.
You loved him. You guys were friends.
We're friends. I loved him. Rick doesn't even know I did this. And I was just like, Rick's the guy. They went to Rick and Much fucked him over.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But Rick, I really wish Rick would have had that job. And then he ended up going to Entertainment Tonight, had a great career there. But there's never been anybody like Rick Campanelli. The franchise, Ricky Youngcat, the champ. We had so many names for him. And he was also like super dark and super edgy. There was a part of him that people never got to see.
He always seems very clean cut.
Yeah, well, Rick and I in Vegas was a nightmare. Like we were in trouble. We had troubles for sure. But Rick to me is the greatest, and he still looks the same. I've put
he doesn't age. This guy
doesn't age. No, I've had my Instagram since when Instagram started. I've had a very lovely response from people, and I put pictures up of lots of celebrities that I've worked with or whatever, and get lots of likes. The number one photo is Rick and I.
Still.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Rick's the god.
Yeah, because you have pictures with like Jamie Foxx and all these like huge Hollywood icons.
People love that stuff, but
you know,
people love Rick. And whenever Rick and I go on together, we've done occasional live streaming little things, people freak out. And it's because Rick is a god, man. And I honestly, I sometimes get emotional thinking about how amazing he is.
That's amazing,
and how nice he was to everybody, and how nice and giving he was to every fan. Like, people should be like Rick. Be like Rick, because Rick Campanelli is human. Yeah, he's a superhuman.
And you guys are still chill fairly often.
Yeah, he's got a family, and so
he's Toronto. Or?
Yeah, yes, Toronto. Yeah, I think he might have suburbs, but we text each other occasionally. I'm just a huge fan of Rick as a person, and I would go out of my way every time we go. Rick's the guy. Rick's the guy. And I think as a broadcaster, in this business, sorry if my stories are going on too long.
Not at all, dude. Please take your time.
Your job is to big up other people. You're going to get all the things you want out of this anyway. Like I like having a job like this because I like, sharing music and sharing ideas and interviewing and connecting. Like, I like it. I never chase the perks of this business because the perks that I would have wanted are going to come anyway if you do the right thing. You have to beat the ego out of you. You have to get rid of it.
Pay it forward.
Gotta.
Yeah. Well, you're here, man, helping me the fuck out.
I want you to be good.
Thank you. I know. You said that in the car and made me want to fucking cry.
No, but I want you to be good, man. And because the fucking country needs it, right? We need people to grow up. This is a difficult business. This is a business that is basically run by 3 cable companies in this country. It is impossible to get in. All the jobs were like, I came from a radio background. So all the entry-level jobs that taught me the things I needed to be taught to get to a place where by the time I got to MuchMusic, I already had 8 years of experience, right? Like, they blew the bridge up. Those jobs don't exist anymore. And there's no overnights. There's no, radio stations aren't community centers I'm talking in big cities, the way they used to be. Hell, I don't even think they are in small towns because they're mostly taking consultant-fed satellite feeds and all that other stuff.
The internet kind of fucked radio a bit.
Well, but I would just wonder, if radio fucked itself and the internet just filled the void.
That's actually a very
Because-
interesting way to look at it.
Because I kind of feel like they forgot what this is really about. You're going to make a lot of money anyway if you're a company. You're going to make a lot of money, but you don't got to be a pig about it.
Yeah. And
It's
focus
like
on making quality product. And
It's like when you fill out your taxes. Fill out your taxes. You want to get the tax breaks you can get, but don't be a pig.
yeah.
Don't be a pig. We're in this together. And most of the radio companies, and I'm not naming any of them, but most that's just not what they do anymore. And
Maybe it's because they fear they're on the way out and they feel like they're, circling the drain, so they have to paddle against it.
But not to be a contrarian. But they're not going anywhere because they control your access to the internet, dude. Those same places are your internet service providers. So you're going to cut the cord for one cable company, but what are you going to cut the cord for? Netflix? You're still paying that cable company so you can get online.
And there's just more and more Netflix is popping up, Disney Plus. And
right. And who owns Disney Plus? Disney.
Yeah.
And what did they buy? ABC before. And now what do they own? Fox.
And Marvel and Star Wars.
Right. So they own all the shit. So if you think about it now, if you're paying for Disney, and I'm not mad at it because if you want good shit, pay for it.
Yeah.
If you want good shit, pay for it, right? I'm okay with that. Stuff costs money. TV costs money. But Disney Plus, Hulu, which has been bought, I think, by NBC, or maybe even them, Netflix, Apple Plus TV, although I suspect somebody's going to buy Netflix Monday.
You think so?
I think so. What are those guys' exit strategy? Those guys at some point got to get paid. I don't think they're going to go and acquire everybody. I don't think they're an acquisition kind of people.
Wouldn't it be smartest for someone like Disney Plus to just buy Netflix?
Apple.
Yeah, actually, that makes way more sense.
But because Disney Plus, maybe I actually don't know. I don't know who's going to buy it. But I think Netflix is the only piece in motion that's so big that it changes your game as a company. I like Apple because they're not a cable company.
That's true. They kind of stick to a different domain. Yeah.
They don't control my access to the internet. I don't respect monopolies. I don't respect that. I think it's bad for the culture. And a duopoly is the same thing as a monopoly in my mind. Mm-hmm. So, or two or three corporations that control everything. And
a lot of trust goes out the window when someone's just saying like, no, let me do your everything. I'll cover everything for you. It's like,
I got you. Yeah.
I don't know anymore, you know?
Totally. So I think there's so much great stuff happening online, obviously. And I love live streams. I think it's really fun. I love streaming. I don't mind algorithm radio. I don't mind that, but I like live stuff. I love Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan's awesome.
I love it. I don't agree with everything Joe says, but who cares? I don't need to.
Well, and I love that he does sort of what we were talking about earlier, which is he respects people that are coming from different viewpoints and is willing to hear them out and then willing to, rebut and what it may be, but it never gets to a level of animosity.
One of my favorites is Bill Maher. I'm an enormous Bill Maher fan, and I know that a lot of people who are friends of mine or who maybe just follow me along, they hate Bill Maher, and because they don't think he's woke. But I'll tell you something, Bill's mega woke. But Bill has a point of view which suggests that he doesn't subscribe to all the bullshit from the left. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with everything Bill Maher says, but I never set up to. And I love Bill Maher.
He makes me laugh too sometimes, even if when he's saying shit I don't agree with.
Yeah.
He did a whole rip on Stan Lee and comic books and stuff and saying how they were for kids, and I still found it like a funny monologue.
I actually agreed with him big time on that.
In some ways I did too, but obviously I'm a fucking nerd, so like I was defensive in a different way, but I still thought it was a well-written monologue and he was funny as hell.
But also have people challenge you, and who cares if you he's not right. That's just his point of view.
That's his opinion.
He's not right.
Yeah. He's not telling you can't still like comics.
Exactly.
Or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think what he was just... I heard the same... It's this idea that... my three favorite people in the public eye say shit that I disagree with all the time. We have fundamental values differences on some issues, but we have a lot in common as well, and I never for once want to be a fan of somebody who doesn't challenge me. What is the point?
Yeah. Holy
shit. To go on the air, if I didn't listen to Public Enemy or The Clash or Patti Smith or George Carlin as a kid, what would I have become?
Yeah.
I would have become a follower, man.
Another cog in the machine.
No thanks.
Yeah.
Hard pass. I want people to push me, not just so that they can challenge my values, but so I can also look at them and say, no, I don't agree with you. So they solidify my position. Mm-hmm. There's a great punk rock manifesto, which is kill your idols. It's really important.
Well, and not only that, but you may enlighten them in the process, and they might come to your side or whatever it may be, and that's beneficial as well.
I remember sitting talking to Bill Maher about something, and he looked at me once and he goes, "Is this therapy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, if you need it to be."
Yeah.
I think Bill Maher's amazing. I think Bill Maher, like I said, I don't have to agree with everything, but who cares? And Bill doesn't care either.
He's done a couple things, like when he dressed up like a Crocodile Hunter with the barb coming out of his chest.
Was that on TV or was that just?
Was that a Halloween party or something? But they got photos taken of it and it circulated. I know,
I've seen far worse.
I know, but
his bad taste
all the people though, Crocodile Hunter is a fucking sweetheart.
Steve Irwin's amazing.
You know what I mean? Like,
but is bad taste a reason to cut a guy out?
No, and that's why a lot of this cancel culture stuff is taken over the top.
Totally, but I respect it in a way because against cancel culture is also what we were talking about earlier when we say the market is just decided, right? I don't think
that's what the people want.
Yeah, I'm not mad at people who have a voice now who have been ignored for so long by the mainstream. I'm not mad at them.
Not at all.
Let her rip, burn it down if you have to.
Yeah,
I'm on side with that because things got to change, and I'm ready for it.
Maybe that's why Lee Scratch Perry did it. I don't know if that was on the recording, but we were talking about before. He said he burned down.
Lee Scratch Perry burned his studio down. I think Lee did it for. Yeah, philosophically.
Maybe he was just fucked up.
Well, I think there's no doubt about that. But I think philosophically he did it because don't rely on your past. Your past is irrelevant. Unless you owe somebody an apology, then it's important.
Yeah.
But your past is generally your past accomplishments.
Always be moving forward in some momentous way. Yeah.
Your past accomplishments are unimportant.
I before I forget about the Strombo, House of Strombo.
Oh, anyway, so that's why I went to Much. So I said, "F it, I'm doing it at my house." I walked by the Edge. I walked by Much. They were both closed. I said, "I'm doing it at my house." That's why I started doing the House of Strombo.
Something dies, something new is born. Yeah, I get that symbolism there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the main question that I got confused about there was when I realized you were straight edge and living the straight edge lifestyle. Specifically with having bands coming into your house, I was just going to ask you, like, what kind of a struggle, or do you find that difficult to have people?
You mean if there's booze or drugs in my house?
Well, we know musicians and rock stars are generally indulgers in a lot of, No,
I go to Burning Man all the time, man. I've been 5 times. I love it.
So how did you, or when and why did you become straight edge?
I quit. I went clean in 1994.
Oh, wow, ages ago.
Long time ago. I was making a lot of bad choices, and I was going in a bad direction.
You would have been pretty young at that point, yeah.
22.
Yeah.
But I mean, I started early.
Same here, yeah.
I earned it too. You know what? And I just decided it was time. I was unhealthy. Doctors kind of weighed in on that as well. I had some doctors who were just kind of like, "You got to change your life." I remember getting my last rites from a preacher. I remember like there was.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was near the end for sure.
You were in hospital or something?
No, I was at home, and but I wasn't like. But that wasn't alcohol or drug related. That wasn't that. It was just not. I was in good health. And then one day I just kind of went, "Nah, fuck it, I'm done." And also I realized, and this is true, man. Everything I've said to you is true. I think. I realized that I wanted to be good at this job. I wanted to be good at it, and I wanted to be good at it on a level that I knew was there, but was out of reach. And so I thought, if you want to, when you're watching the greatest musicians of all time, music heads will call them killers. That's a fucking killer. That guitarist is a killer. I wanted to be the equivalent in my business of a killer. And I wanted to get to that level where I could sit in any room in any country around the world with anybody, regardless of what they did for a living. Could I sit across from a president or a prime minister or a dictator?
Not be fazed.
Not fazed at all. Not just not be fazed, but own it. Like, and say, hey, you have a responsibility to reach the audience. And I knew that it just took time and effort. So I made a decision when I was very young in my career that I wanted to be good at this. I wasn't an addict. I wasn't an alcoholic, none of that. But I'm like, I think to get to where I need to go, I have to focus. I talked to Tom Morello about he came over to the house from Rage to talk about his practice schedule.
An audio slave.
An audio slave. He talked about the amount of hours a day he practiced. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Well, so did I. But I couldn't.
But he may have been practicing under the influence, right?
I don't think he was, actually.
That was just the point I was going to make when you're talking about the greats and all that. I'm sure tons of them were, using or whatever.
Yeah, but they're all dead.
Yeah, that's true.
They're fucking dead, man.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine was like, all your favorites, your favorite music, wouldn't exist without marijuana. I'm like, that's not true. My favorite music wouldn't exist without heroin.
Yeah.
Right?
Heroin's
my favorite
probably the
artists,
big one,
were
yeah.
fucking junkies. Johnny Rotten's one of my one of my
Cobain,
favorites.
obviously.
Yeah, these are like the kings.
Brad Noel from Sublime.
Yes, exactly. Patti Smith didn't do heroin.
But a hell of a lot of them did, yeah.
Yeah, hell, exactly. But I thought for myself that I will only get to the level I want to get to if I practice in a way that's commensurate with my goals. How committed to this am I really? Mm-hmm. So I knew people who were trying to get work in this world would go home and practice an hour a day. I practice 15 hours a day. Dude, I still, to this day, practice. I am constantly working on my craft to this day. I've done this for 30 years. And
Sounds like you have multiple crafts, though.
I have multiple crafts, but I have to work on them in multiple ways,
Yeah.
right? So I spend so much time doing shit that people I work with look at me and they say, why are you wasting your time with that? But I know what I'm doing is I'm practicing. Because remember that great Allen Iverson thing? You talking about practice? We talking about practice? That's what this is. It's practice. Like you have, if you want to be good, practice a little bit. If you want to be great,
phenomenal, yeah.
honor it. And because being great is not a thing to achieve. Like, it's not like I'm great. No, it's not anything I am. It's a work ethic. Like, this is not about me. This is about the work ethic, right? And the craft. And everybody can get to this level and do whatever they want. But you have to honor it. Craft is not something you own. Craft is something that you hope.
Something you harness.
And hope it shines its light on you for a minute. And you have to do so much just to get to that point. And I respect it. I mean, I come from zero education. I went to Humber College for radio broadcasting. I was a movie theater usher and a forklift driver, and I worked at Mr. Submarine. But my career goal.
Mr. Sub, nice.
I loved it, man. Assorted.
They're dying out, though, eh?
Are they? Was it the cold cut combo? No, the assorted.
Yeah, my dad used to bring those home when we were kids.
Remember the assorted? Oh my God, Brian, the assorted was my favorite. Oh yeah, before I went vegan, yeah. So all I'm saying is that when I realized that if I wanted, I couldn't do that hungover. I was partying a lot, and I would go out and I would be out of my mind. And then one day I got a call, and I wasn't working, and I was at a party and I was fucking toasty, and I got a call from my boss saying, "Hey, can you come in and fill in?"
Oh shit!
And I remember it was an overnight show, like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I was obliterated. But what do I say? Totally got it. Went to work. Had a bunch of coffee, overnight show, barely pulled it off. But in my head, I thought, well, that was dumb. You should have been ready, man.
Yeah, like what if this had been something you actually cared a lot more about?
Yeah. Well, I was only 22 at the time. Right?
Yeah.
Also I was riding motorcycles, and I didn't even want to have a motorcycle with one drink in me. So a couple of friends of mine had died.
Very
so
smart.
I'm looking around thinking, I don't need that for this. And I wanted, so what I did was, and this is a true thing, man, every single day I went to work. On my day off, I went to work. I would go into the radio station, at the fan, the sports station. I would wait for the guy doing the music show overnight around, like down the hallway. I'd wait for him to put on a long song, because when he put on a long song, I knew he was going downstairs to have a cigarette. I would run into the studio. I would grab his playlist. I would photocopy it. I would return it. I would take a bunch of CDs that I know he wasn't playing, that he didn't need anymore. I would take it. He didn't even know I was in there. I would go into a production studio.
It's like some ninja shit.
Totally. I'd wait till 10 o'clock or whatever, top of the hour, midnight, 1 a.m. I'd wait till top of the hour, again, pre-internet, and I would just press play, and I would fake a radio show for nobody, just for me. And I did it every single day.
Really?
For years.
Wow.
When I got on TV, I'm not, by no means am I great at television on any level. I'm competent for what I am, but I remember like you can kind of do, you can like do any kind of show, and it's like because I practiced every kind of show a lot, and I practiced when I was tired, like 4 a.m, man. I'd be there faking a radio show for nobody. I'd record the show. I'd hand it to somebody and so, can you give me an air check? And they'd be like, you're shit, do it again. And I would every single day that I wasn't working. So I'd be working, and then I would sleep on my boss's couch in his office for 2 hours. And I remember he walked in one day, and I was passed out on his couch in the morning. And you know what he did? He shut the door and went and worked somewhere else because he respected the grind. And because he had that grind. And a lot of us in that era had that grind. Barry Davis, Elliot Friedman, Bob Mackwitz, Jeff Merrick. We were all there at the same time. We were just babies, and we were all working like that. That's how you pull it off. Because there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of cats who can have 3, 4, 5, 10-year careers. You can do that. How do you get a 30-year career? And you're going to be older a lot longer than you're young.
That's true.
So put the fucking investment in that, man. And most cats, and this is where I don't know how old you are, but most cats
34.
34.
Yeah.
So most cats in the social media game, you can get famous quickly. And that's dope, right? Because fame is an important part of this. Profile is an important part of this equation, right? The more you have people watching you, the more you have access to sponsors or whatever, or networks.
Propel yourself.
100%. Yeah, 100%. What you don't have, though, is this, like most people, once they get a little taste of it, well, they think that's the win. That's not the fucking win. The win is, can you do this in your sleep? If I got a call tomorrow. In fact, I was once, not saying I can. And by the way, this is not bragging, because this is not bragging. This is honestly
so far from meeting, you've been like the most humble dude ever. So
it's just work, right?
Yeah.
It's just craft. I remember, this is a true story. I was so tired. I finished the interview show season. I was so exhausted, right? I drove my car, a motorcycle to LA. I get to LA, I park my bike, and I had a house there, like I was renting, and I had a kayak there. I remember, I swear to God, I got in my kayak, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to the ocean. So I can swear on this show, right?
Oh, yeah. Fucking A.
So I paddled out in the ocean, true story. I'm not even that good a kayaker, and the waves are bigger than I need them to be, and I'm just going, I'm going to fucking die out here. This is crazy. But whatever, I'm just chilling, and I have my phone inside my shirt, right, out there. And the phone rings, and I look at it. I'm not answering it, and it keeps ringing. Then I finally pull it out of the kayak pocket, and I look at it, and it's a number from Toronto from work. And I'm like, oh, what do you want from me?
Yeah, leave me alone.
I'm not back for 2 months. What do you want? So I answered it, and they're like, hey, listen, so he'll do the interview. And I'm like, what? It was Prince Charles.
Oh,
and he hadn't done a television interview in Canada, right?
That's a heavy hitter.
Yeah. And I was just, and they're like, where are you? And I'm just like,
start kayaking, George.
Yeah, well, this is it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in the Pacific Ocean right now. So here's what I did. I said, all right, I'll do it. Put my phone in my pocket, paddle back, get in the car, drive into Hollywood, stop at a clothing store, buy something that I think I can wear, go home, take a shower, wake up on a plane in England doing the interview. But with zero, like not 1 ounce of me thought, can't do this. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I'm cocky. No. It's because I'm like, oh yeah.
That thought doesn't even enter.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's not about you, right? When you have a public presence and you have, like I said, a platform, what it is somebody's giving you the keys to the car for a minute. Mm-hmm. Take care of that car. Be responsible with that car. Be respectful with that car. Drive the fuck out of that car. Make that car a bit your own.
Yeah.
But you're going to give that to somebody else next. So make sure it's better and faster for them. And so.
Don't total it.
Always don't. Yeah. I mean, I've wrecked my car a few times, for sure. But then get him a nicer car. So to me, it was like, it's practice, craft. And it's, to me, a good career is like a good country. Like Canada is not a real, like we brag about what Canada is. It's not. It's an ideal that's not real. It's something to aspire to. Go get it.
Yeah.
Got to do the work.
It's a mentality. Yeah.
Want to call yourself a great country? Have clean drinking water for everybody. We don't have that. We're not a great country.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what's great about this country. Not everybody in this country has.
Those are all people who could be contributing to making it a better country, and everyone could be succeeding together.
Yeah, or not being poisoned.
Well, I mean,
right?
That's the baseline.
That's
obviously.
the baseline.
Yeah.
You would think, right? So we're not a great country until everybody has clean drinking water. Mm-hmm. I will fight.
Actually, the girl whose show I bailed on, we had talked about this a lot because she's putting on all these indigenous shows. She's an indigenous woman herself, and we touched on a lot of this as well. So
got to do it. And so, but it's something to aspire to. So I think comfort and success in his career, if you're so lucky as to be given it, will only be given to you. I'm talking about a long-term career, is if you respect it and you do the work and you challenge it. Make it better, make it more progressive, make it more inclusive. I draw a line in the sand very simply. You either are more inclusive or you're more exclusive. If you're more exclusive, you're not on my team. If you're more inclusive, you're on my team.
Right on.
Those who make this a better, safer place for everybody, especially people who don't have a voice, that's the team we're on.
That's a good team to be on.
Especially with our fucking privilege that we've been given by being, we're white men in this country.
Yeah.
Gift. Like we avoid a lot of bullshit
yeah.
by being guys like us.
And we don't have as many assumptions made about us, negative connotations being drawn about us just because of the way we look. Or,
Yeah, walk down the street and just see what it's like when you're not white when a police officer shows up. Different.
You know,
different
well, I
lives.
mean, this was also my driving record, but I'm sure if I got pulled over once, and I have a really great driving record, and she even said to me, you can officially tell your mom you're a good boy, which I found very condescending, to be honest. But
The cop told you that?
yeah, a female cop said that to me
I'd
after
be like,
pulling
don't
me
talk
over.
about my fucking mother.
I wanted to say my mother's dead. And
Oh,
just like,
no.
just fuck with
Oh,
that.
yeah. I hear what you're saying.
But had I been a person of color in that probably would have gone very differently.
I got-
would have found a reason that I was guilty. You know?
It could have been. I got kicked around hard by LAPD, and I was just like, my God, I mean, you're treating me like this, completely unfounded. But I know what they do to young men of color down there, and it's crushing. Where I lived in Venice, the story would all have been if you see 3 African American men standing on a corner just talking, there will be 5 cruisers.
Jesus.
It just happens. So we've already, like, that's an indignation and a fear that we don't have. So what we're supposed to do with that extra space, like you have to compartmentalize all the realities of your life. No matter what you and I go through, and we go through real human shit, real stuff, right? Real things that nobody has a smooth path for the most part. There's things we don't have to compartmentalize. Things we just don't have to.
Parts of just your basic makeup too. You can't change your skin or your ethnicity or any of that.
And if you're a man, think of all the things you avoid.
True.
So the stuff that, like, we walk down the street and we don't have a fear in us that a lot of women have to have.
Yeah.
Think about all the energy that goes into compartmentalizing now. We don't have to do that. So my thing is, what are you going to do with that space? That extra space you have? Are you going to go on TV and you're going to tell people how to make more fucking money? How you can be a better you? Fuck that. No, it's not about you. How can you take that opportunity and that extra space and do something on behalf of somebody else? I'm not saying, like, don't go on and talk about music or movies or comic books or sports. I'm just saying that with your profile, what are you going to be about?
Yeah, help the underdog sometimes.
Help
you
'em.
know. Yeah.
Help them. And if you got big elbows, stick them out. And that's been my and once I realized when I was young that my career is not about me. My career is about us. I work with the same cats I worked with 20 years ago. Us is better than me every single time. And all the benefits that you want out of making it about you, you're going to get them anyway.
Yeah.
You're going to get them anyway.
But don't lead with that.
Don't fucking lead with it. You don't need it. It's going to come. It's not about being famous. It's about making good shit. Right? And I've learned over the years that language is really important. Not just what you say on the air, but what you tell yourself. What you feed your subconscious. That's really important. And so I can...
Like a mantra, you mean, of some kind? Or
I won't let... Like, I will not get in my own way.
I do that constantly, I think.
Don't.
I mean, I'm clearly doing some things, right?
Yeah,
You're here,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis, just with my anxiety and OCD and some things that I feel like I sometimes don't have control over. But
Well, I mean, if it's a medical thing and
Yeah,
there's
I
doctors,
mean,
and that's different. But
it's still something I can try to... This one, my commentary about mental health, if you can, you should always still be trying to climb that.
if you can, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Take the medication if it's what works for you. But for me, I tried, Prozac when I was 18 or 19, and it worked in some of the ways it was supposed to. My anxiety kind of went down.
Yeah.
But all my creative juices just kind of left at the same time, and it was,
I'm only a doctor in the honorary sense and not in medicine.
I heard that. That's rad. I
But
saw that.
I would never comment on, like, the medical component to it. But even without that, people get in their own way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in this business, everything's in your way to start. And I believe that if you can't figure your way through it, then you shouldn't have it.
You don't deserve it, yeah.
The career's not for everybody. Because if you do this job right, look at Donald Trump, right? If you do the job right as a public person, meaning he became super famous, like really famous. He was in Home Alone. He's very famous. Donald
The
Trump,
Apprentice and all that, yeah.
He's been famous for a long time, right?
In a lot of ways,
In a lot of ways. There's no ceiling. He could become the president, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
Every other job has a ceiling. What's your union? What's your pay grade? Almost every other job in this world has a ceiling. This job, if you do it right, meaning a public person, build up some whatever, has no ceiling.
There's no limit, yeah.
No limit. So what's the cost going to be? Because it's going to cost you something, right? And the biggest cost is, are you responsible, and do you have the stomach for it? Because you need to have the stomach for it. to pull this off. And not everybody does, and that's cool. And there's lots of gigs that I'm sure I don't have the stomach for. I don't really want to be, well, actually, I don't want to be a surgeon.
No, I completely agree.
I don't have the steady hand for that. Right now, my gig. There's things I don't want to be.
Someone's life in your hands as well, yeah.
Pass. Don't want to be, pass. Don't want that. But I believe that most people can get through the obstacles that they put in their own way.
Actually, to tie this into my family, just because you're talking about honoring it and that being a way to sort of forge through difficulties. My brother is actually a funeral director, which
that's what I was going to be.
You have to. You got to, first of all, just get around the life and death thing to some degree to be able to deal with what you have to do. But he told me that a lot of the ways that he was able to deal with some of the more disturbing, situations he found himself in was by honoring the fact that he was going to be giving these families closure. And
what a gift. What a gift to be the person that has that responsibility.
Well, not unlike your interview that you mentioned with
June,
the woman who was
she passed away only a few days later after that interview. I wanted to be funeral director when I was booted out of the art situation. I figured I was going to be a funeral director, but then I fucking failed science, and I failed but I really failed science. Like I didn't get close. I answered every question on the final exam. I think I got 100. I think the exam was like 117 questions, and I think I got 20 right. Like I really bombed out. So I dropped math and science, and that was the end of my...
That window closed.
That was it.
Yeah.
Funeral direction. I always liked funeral direction because of the music.
Well,
for me, it was 9 Inch Nails. It was very, very morose, very gothy. I'm like, I could get behind the music.
Yeah.
I can get behind the music in this game. I could be an Undertaker, right? I could do that.
The vibe, yeah.
Yeah, I could do it. But your brother does that now?
Well, funeral director, as I understand it, what he does is more the upstairs kind of stuff
upstairs,
now. But he did have to go through the course of embalming people and doing all that. And he told me about some, pretty disturbing stuff. People had been run over by trains and weren't really in one piece in the body bag and stuff like that,
Wow.
And as far as I know, I'm pretty sure he's had to do kids or young people and, the whole process, right? And yet my brother's like almost the last person I would have expected to be able to handle that because I remember him cutting his hand when he was like 10 and passing out from the sight of his own blood. And here he is dealing with dead bodies on their eggs.
The skin that you're wrapped in often belies the lion inside you. And most of the time, people never get to see that fucking lion. Never mind the world. You don't get to see the lion you are. And then your brother goes on and does this. Yeah. To take somebody to their final resting place, what an incredible responsibility. What a beautiful responsibility. And gothy music. So it all works out,
Yeah, hey, man, maybe you really should get back in there. It sounds like you got a second calling here.
I'd rather just ride a motorcycle.
Yeah. Shit, man. I definitely wanted to touch on... Well, actually, the straight edge stuff was meant to also segue into veganism because you did mention you were vegan, and my dad recently switched to vegan. And I myself, I'm a vegetarian.
Trying. It's hard.
I'm vegetarian, more pescatarian. I suppose I eat fish sometimes, but
I ate so much fish, my body couldn't deal with it anymore.
Oh yeah,
so much sushi. I ate so much sushi, my body couldn't.
When was this change for you?
I think I went vegan. I don't remember exactly, but I'm thinking it's 8-9 years ago.
Okay,
roughly. But I gave up fish a little. See, I didn't eat fish as a kid. I didn't eat sushi at all until I was working at MuchMusic. I'd never had sushi. The idea of raw fish was not my vibe. And then as this woman who was in a band who I interviewed said, let's go get sushi. So I had it and I thought it was good. Then I went down to New Orleans, speaking of funeral directors, and I went to the funeral parlor that Trent Reznor had converted into a recording studio.
Oh, crazy.
And after that, I went and got a bunch of seafood, and I hadn't eaten a lot of seafood, and I loved it. And then I just ate so much. So there's a sushi restaurant around the corner from my joint in Toronto, and I remember every time I'd walk in, they would know. I would walk into the back, I would sit, and I would eat.
Just reek up the place.
2 hours. They would just be feeding pounds of sushi. And then my body just rejected it, probably because of the mercury. So I just had to stop eating sushi.
Well, were you hitting like calamari and everything from the ocean, or just mainly sushi?
So, yeah, sashimi, just raw fish. I loved it so much.
So do you miss it now then?
No, but sometimes I remember thinking how great it was having a great piece of sushi. But honestly, the vegetarian sushi is great. I'm maybe the last guy you would have ever expected to go vegan if you knew me. I'm the last guy. Anybody
you used to be a big meat eater?
Oh my God, a steak and lobster, and then in the middle of it, I would order a second order of that. Like I could crush food. My manager always says he's never seen anybody eat like me. I could eat like it's going out of style. But I had this philosophical shift in my head where I thought the world is not mine to go through. I'm eating like I want, and I don't And I just could see that it's not a great habit in my head. And so I just said, no.
Maybe don't order those Fred Flintstone ribs.
You don't get them. Yeah, put it away, bro. You had enough.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see food as something I reject, and I shouldn't, but I reject foodie culture. I hate it. I fucking hate foodie culture. I work with the World Food Program. We go all around the world. We see food insecurity all around the world. The concept of foodie culture just burns every part of me. It's not bad.
It's not for you.
It just burns me.
Yeah, I get it.
And I'm in the wrong, but it burns me. And I didn't want to fetishize food. I didn't want to be a part of that. Food is a beautiful thing, but again, like my whole bullshit punk rocky thing I subscribe to, if we all can't have, we must fight till they all have. And I just rejected it. And so I just was like, I'm eating too much. I'm eating the wrong stuff. And one day I was at a restaurant in Toronto, and apparently it was like one of those hoof, snout kind of tail things with everything you would eat. Everything.
Okay, all the crazy bits. Yeah.
All the crazy bits. So my friend Jim and I ordered this charcuterie plate, and I'm eating a bunch of meat. And this one piece at the end I ate, and I was like, I don't like it, but whatever. And I said to the server, I said, hey, man, what is that? And he says, it's horse.
Oh.
And I said to him, you got to fucking tell me if it's horse. And he goes, no, meat is meat. It's the same as a cow. And then I said, it's absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't want to eat a Cocker Spaniel, dude.
Because it's also not the same laws, the same regulations as the whole other world. And he's like, no, it's this big deal. I'm like, don't. And I'm very polite generally, but I was like, fuck, I take that fucking. And so my friend Jim's like, I'll eat it. So he ate it. The next day I'm walking down the street, and there was this cop on a horse on Queen Street, and we'd crossed paths before in a good way, and we started talking. But I was on the curb. So it's at eye level of the horse. And the horse was staring at me. And I remember looking at the horse thinking, fuck, you can probably smell it.
On your breath, yeah.
Yeah. So I said to the horse, I didn't know. And the cop's like, what are you saying? I said, I accidentally.
You're like confessing a crime.
I'm like, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. And you know what? That stuck with me. It's like a lot of my friends that went vegan when they were stuck in traffic behind a tractor trailer pulling cows or pigs, and they make eye contact with a cow. And once you make eye contact with an animal going to its certain death, there are a lot of people who make jokes and go, oh, I want to eat pork. But there's a few people who go, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And when I talked to that horse, I thought, I got to be better at this. And then also the environmental impacts. So then I just went vegan. You know?
Yeah.
But like the booze and drugs thing with the meat thing, and this is where I disagree with most of my friends on the left, do whatever you want.
That's how I feel.
I don't care.
Yeah, because everyone's on their own journey. For me, like, I'm not like a card-carrying PETA member or anything. I do eat fish sometimes. I eat eggs and butter and shit like that. But I always figure that, like, if all this life is on this earth, I didn't create any of this life, right? So I'm not comfortable at this point taking it, or not in a large way, or contributing to that life.
Yeah, like
taken.
the factory, like the gigantic industrial. Yeah, that's a.
But on the same vein, I didn't create you either. Yeah. So what the fuck? Why should I have control over your journey and your path and your?
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%. And also, the other thing that happened around that time was they banned the filming in America in chicken coops. And I remember
chopping beaks.
Yeah. So activists couldn't film what was happening. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, wait, you're going to film me on every step of my day, but the only thing I can't see is what I eat?
Yeah.
Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
You corporate bullshit pigs who are in bed with the government. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck you, and I'm done. And that was kind of the straw.
Well, and the worst part is we're feeding this to our youth. People are taking their kids to McDonald's every day or whatever. What garbage are you putting? Yeah, exactly. Like, good things in moderation.
Just when you say it, I'm like triggered in a good way. I'm like, oh my god, I just remember that so well.
Taken back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to date this girl, and she used to tell me all the time. This woman, she used to tell me all the time. She's like, you're such a peasant, because I would just like, give me the most low rent food you can get me. I'm in. Man, you Big Mac, 20 McNuggets, 2 cheeseburgers, and a McChicken. Heaven for me. That was a meal for me. I loved it.
That's quite a hefty one.
Oh, I could eat. Yeah, I could eat. Yeah. Oh my God. There's no late night food in Ottawa, is there?
You can find something, I'm sure. Yeah? But you got to stay vegan, man.
But that's why I went vegan. No, I'm not going to get a burger yet. That's why I went vegan. But again, I also felt a lot better since I did.
Well, when you were talking about just recognizing, like, I don't need to eat this, I was going to bring up something that's been helping me in the same regard and has had a full circle effect on my my willpower in a way, which is intermittent fasting.
That's what I do that.
Just because that's like, when I get into a pretty long fast, I look at food and I go like, oh, I'm not even hungry, and I should be.
What's your ratio?
I do 2 to 3 a week on average, and they're usually 20 to 24 hours.
Yeah, so I do 18 to 20 hours, and I do about 5 days a week.
Oh, shit.
Not today on the plane, but often. And I'll tell you, but I drink a cold brew coffee.
Okay.
I drink cold brew coffee.
Yeah, I drink black coffee.
Yeah, I'll have two black coffees a day. That's it. And I'll drink water.
Do you eat a big meal before bed? Because I do that, and apparently it's all a myth that you're not supposed to.
Yeah. So what I do is I try to, this is if I can go to the gym or not, but I do the long ass fast, then I go to the gym. And
Eat
then
after the fast. Dude, I talked about this like last episode. Yeah. The
Ferociously.
caveman method or whatever, you know?
I eat
You hunt your
ferociously.
food.
Yeah.
Because when would you find your food? When you're probably tired and hungry.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to work your ass off to get it, and then you'd eat a shit ton of protein.
And I am pastorific, man. I can eat spaghetti like you've never seen, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. And when I'm not intermittent fasting, like today, I have less energy.
Yeah.
When I am intermittent fasting, my life is completely different. And I don't know that it's for everybody, but I know that if you're a dude and you get to a certain age, mid-30s, you should really think about it.
Yeah.
Changes.
Or trying it at least.
Yeah. Again, it's like you're 20 years old. You don't need it.
No, you've got this metabolism
Totally.
working overtime still, yeah.
You get to your mid-30s. There's also something really interesting about leaning into your hunger. Like leaning into it and just going, yeah, I could eat, but no, I'm good. To me, when I'm at the gym and I know I'm near the end of the workout, I get so excited.
Crush even more, yeah.
Oh yeah, because I get into the car and I swear to God I time it. I get on my Uber Eats app. I'm like, boom, this, boom. Head home.
Wait for your feast.
Sit down, eat, put on a show.
Yeah.
And just kind of eat, and I don't think about what I'm eating. I mean, of course I tried it. Well, I don't always eat healthy, but I do think that for men of a certain age, it's real. I don't know the physiological impacts on women. I'm not a woman. But I know from my male friends who do this, the difference in their life is dramatic.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but if everyone started getting on board with fasting, we'd just all be consuming less as a species, which would probably be great for the planet, you know?
Totally. I was in Sudan during the war, and it was Ramadan. And they were breaking fast. I think it was 3 a.m. I don't remember exactly. They were breaking a fast at 3 a.m. And the joy, the fun. I mean, there's a war going on, right? But the spirit where everybody gathered to eat after a day of saying, no, I'm good.
Yep.
And it was about, and really what it was about was something other than yourself. I really like that. I just love it. And I think I need these kind of rules in my head. I have to kind of create, because I live a very unstructured life and I have a very unstructured brain.
It can help give you some focus. And,
I need it. Otherwise I'm a spiraling kid.
Well, and what you were saying about people assuming that when you're fasting, you're going to be like tired. I feel everyone has that expectation when they don't do it. They think, oh, I'm not going to be able to get through my day. But counter that, since I've been doing fasts, like if I'll go to work, I always fast because I find if I eat, I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah, I'm tired.
I'm tired like, I can't think now, you know. So.
But what's worse is that when we start talking about it, I just know that people are because fitness culture is like the beauty industry. They're both so toxic in a lot of ways. They're so positive in some respects, but they're so toxic. This fucking bro science and all that. I'm like,
but you don't have to tie fasting in with fitness necessarily.
No, I know, but I'm saying that generally people come across it on fucking Instagram and they see these
they
people.
rip you open, yeah.
Totally. So I do it on Instagram sometimes, but I try to have some fun with it, right?
Yeah.
I try to have some fun with it because I recognize that a lot. Because what happened was when I went vegan, I lost a bunch of weight, and then I had to go to the gym and put muscle back on because I lost all of it. Man.
I struggle with that too. It's one of the reasons I still eat fish. It's just like I can get some protein quick. And
I wish I was in your condition, but so sometimes cats will go, yo, what are you doing? How'd you drop the lbs? What are you doing? What are you eating? So I like sharing it. I was at some sort of event I was hosting when there was a bunch of vegans around, and there was a vegan YouTuber who said, kind of dismissively to me, you don't really talk about your veganism. I'm like, no. What do you mean?
Why would people care? Yeah.
He's like, because it's not like your thing. And I was like, well, no, of course it's not my thing.
What I eat and
my
shit
fucking
out.
food is not my thing. Food's important, but it's and it says a lot and it's political, but my politics are the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I never wanted to be that guy.
Yeah.
But again, it's nothing wrong being that guy because we're promoting a healthy lifestyle. But I love it, man. I love it. Except I know tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up. I'm doing this event. I got to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Which I go to bed at 5. So to go to 6 o'clock in the morning is a fucking nightmare for me.
Blink once and then you're out the door.
Oh my God, it's going to be hell. But I'm just like, I need a cold.
Thank you so much again, man.
Oh, no, I got nowhere to go. You can talk if you want, but it's your call. You have a family.
Oh, no, man.
I'll your family's in the house.
I'll keep talking to you as long as you want to talk to me, dude. I wanted to bring up, though, that I read that you were into a lot of charity work, and it was too numerous to list them all. But the 1 million acts of green I thought was really cool and kind of ties into what we were just talking about with fasting would kind of help that. So, but I want to fully understand what this process was if people want to get behind this.
Of
this
the charity
movement.
stuff?
Well, no, specifically the 1 million acts of green.
Well, Million Acts of Green was this campaign we did on the Hour a long time ago, which was a very successful sort of environmental awareness campaign, but also like doing the work. That program doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was still ongoing.
No problem. But it does exist in this, that it's just about the choices you make. And what we did with Million Acts of Green was we went out to all these environmental groups that were doing stuff. We brought them under this umbrella, and we challenged our audience in the old talk show, do something, do this. Switch these light bulbs, do this, do that. And we found it was very easy to get people motivated to do stuff. I struggle. I don't struggle. I straddle this line of, I remember hearing Eddie Vedder talk about this once at a Pearl Jam show. You know, we got to do everything we can to protect this earth. However, the other side of the coin is it's too late, so let's just have one massive party before it's done. He was joking.
It's got to be a middle ground.
Yeah, it was based on. I don't live in a lot of the middle ground, so I'm a pretty extreme kind of person, and for better or for worse, often worse. And I think that for me with the environment, I fly a lot, and I have an El Camino, so I use fuels. I don't love pipeline culture, but I use gasoline. Pipelines are safer generally than trains for transport.
That's true.
So I'm trying to make better choices for me based on what I'm able to do. So you do it based on whatever money you have or whatever your life.
But little day-to-day things can go a long way too if everyone gets on board. Yeah.
Huge. But the number one thing, this is the thing that the number one thing we can do as people, aside from switching your diet, is stop buying shit.
Yeah.
But if we stop buying shit, the economy collapses because the economy is this bullshit thing that's based on you spending your money.
Yeah.
So
stuck between a rock and a hard place a little bit.
They don't want this to be better. This is the thing. This is where I get to, Joe Strummer about this. I'm optimistic that we can make change, but I don't think. I mean, we're going to fight for it. They don't really want it to be better. What happened after 9/11? What's the first fucking thing George Bush talked about? Go out there and go back in the malls. Go shopping. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shopping? But we live in a consumer culture. So if we ever break that, I think we can make a difference. But really, corporations have to change. Companies have to change. Governments have to change. We can make a big difference as an individual, but it's the big polluters.
Yeah.
It's the big game that has to change.
How do we accomplish that?
Stop having kids. Stop fucking as many kids as we're having, and stop.
And if you do have them, teach them.
Teach them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that. I think that people. We have. I'm not against kids. Good for you and your kids. Everybody and your kids. I love your kids. I'm happy for you. But I'm just saying that we have to make choices if we actually really believe in climate change. Mm-hmm. Do we believe climate change is real? Of course, everybody with a brain does. Mostly, that climate change is a real issue.
We know plastic in the water is real. Landfills are not going anywhere. And
how many parents buy disposable diapers? How many parents buy diapers?
Guilty. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know we can get diapers and made of cloth and wash them.
Yeah.
I don't know, Brian, if you ever had, that's what I was raised on. So we did. Yeah, it's right. But we're from a different generation.
Yeah.
But the 80s, right? The baby boomers, only some of them sold out, not all of them, but some of them turned into this disposable generation, marketed under the guise of technology. Look at how convenient.
Yeah. And how fast we're coming up with new things.
Yeah.
And
the Dead Kennedys record, give me convenience or give me death. Like that's. So when I hear people talk about climate change, it's like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? I make lots of choices in my life to address it, but I still drive a car. I drive an old car. Do I think my car, my El Camino, that's actually another of the reasons I went vegan. I looked at it, my El Camino, and I went, well, I can offset this by doing this.
Yeah.
So I thought I can drive my El Camino, but I'm not going to eat burgers anymore. And
it's like a karma system to a degree. Yeah. Environmental karma.
You do your can. You do what you can. But it's really the government. But as we saw, an enormous federal party in this country campaigned as if climate change was an unreal boogeyman and that they weren't going to do anything about it. Okay. And they got a lot of fucking votes. They got a lot of votes.
Scary number.
So do you have a lot of sympathy for them when climate change affects them? Of course, because we're human beings, but they made their bed. We make our bed. So whenever shit
problem
goes,
is we all share the planet. So.
That's the problem. That is the problem. But, I was watching about this with the Brazilians and the rainforest when the rainforest is on fire and Bolsonaro was, like people want him to sell the people that want to build the economy. They didn't care enough about the rainforests. But if they are, in fact, the lungs of the world, what are we doing? Is our country giving how much? I don't know the answer. Are all the countries around the world giving money to Brazil to keep the rainforests alive? Because they should be.
Yeah, we should be.
If they're the lungs of the world, pay for them.
Yeah.
Fucking pay for them. Otherwise, shut it. Don't care what you think if you're not willing. And it's not a case of whataboutism. It's a case of accountability. You know, you park illegally for enough times, you get a ticket, you're going to change your parking habits. Most people.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. If you want things to be valuable, if you say they're valuable, then show the value.
Yeah.
Why are we spending all this money on this when we could be spending the money on the lungs of the world if they're, and of course they're that important.
Well, you got to get the people who don't believe that they are the lungs of the world, who are like, you know, a lot of the time making half of these decisions. So.
And I don't even know if we can ever get them to change their mind, dude.
I don't know. Well, that's why I try to do these little things. Like I was going to mention that as much as we were talking about how Facebook kind of sucks, there's a group that my fiance Kelly's been using, which is a Buy Nothing group, where it's literally just people giving shit to other people who might want them, and, you know. Or Ruckify is another one around here where you can rent tools so you don't have to buy them, and just kind of, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of tools in my shed that I used when I was building decks. I don't need them. Fucking borrow them, take them, use them.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are people trying to make those kind of changes.
100%, and it's changing. The other reality is, you know, dude, is that every change is incremental.
Yeah.
If there is a planet in 1,000 years, it will be a lot better off than it is now in some respects, and that people might be more well behaved. It might be too late, but we'll be dead.
The best we can hope for is a fucking Star Trek outcome with everybody stops caring about money and race, and we all prosper and adventure. And
I already live that world. It's called Burning Man.
There you go.
I already live in a Burning Man. It's the best.
There you go. Yeah, being a Burning Man sober must be interesting. You get to see a lot of people out of their gourd. Yeah.
It's every now and then. That's the only place where every now and then I'm like, oh my God, it would be so fun. If.
Well, look, that's kind of coming back to that. I heard basically when I asked you that question about going straight edge, the reasoning was mainly so you could focus and you wanted to have something consistent that you could always count on.
Well, and also not die. That was a huge consideration. Yeah,
true. But my point being that you could have at some point decided, hey, I'm going to be strict about when I drink or whatever. But going straight edge is a much more. It's much more like vegan. It's a hard committal, you know.
Because I can't do anything in the middle. That's my problem. I don't have the. I'm pretty gangster. So I'll go all out. But that's just I just know me. So I know me.
Be true to yourself.
There are people in my life who would like me to be a little bit more in the moderation game. I'm working on the moderation game. But again,
well, for something like straight edge, if you haven't been using anything like that since '94,
oh yeah, no, I'm not going to be using it.
Yeah,
that part of my life's over, sadly.
Yeah.
But in a way, pretty good. Saved me a lot of bullshit, right?
I was surprised that you were straight edge, just because in my mind I always assumed you'd be the type of guy that'd be, hey, you want to smoke a joint?
Yeah,
just
totally.
You give off that vibe, you know, a bit.
Totally.
That's counterculture, you know.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Listen, drugs are counterculture for sure. Let me rephrase that. Drugs were counterculture. Mm-hmm. Drugs aren't counterculture anymore. I don't think at all. There's nobody in the drug space.
Yeah, and I'm not fucking with hard drugs. I'm doing weed, having a beer.
Yeah, but even like I see mushrooms as to me, drugs have switched from counterculture, and what they ought to be is medical culture, right?
Or at least researched properly and not just classified as contraband.
I know so many people whose lives are better because with proper guidance,
microdosing
mushrooms has changed their life, getting them off opioids.
When they say microdosing mushrooms, they've found evidence in tribes back that they used to do that before hunting because it improves your eyesight apparently and your mental acuity and things like that. And so they used to use it, but little amounts.
But if you just a little bit extra, you're seeing too many lions out there, right?
Yeah. I shot Jerry.
That's right, exactly. So I think drugs should be part of a medical conversation, not a justice situation. Mm-hmm. But we know why that was too, because
the Reagan era and shit.
They wanted to fund the war. They
this is
run
your
Contra
brain.
Thing. Yeah, it was all bullshit. But what they were really doing was the Reagan government was conspiring with the drug dealers in the inner city and with the drug growers and cartels, in South and Central America and North America. And they wanted to make their money to fund their war because they didn't want to go to Congress. So what did they do? They fucking just destroyed neighborhoods. The crack epidemic, right? Yeah. And that's all fact. Like, it's not just that's those fucking guys talking. That's fact. Those people are still the people in power. That culture, that era, are still the people who run. That's how you get the Republican Party. And by the way, the Democratic Party have been a failure forever, and now suddenly they have a conscience. Sure, okay.
It's a step in the right direction.
I've been all over America, and I'll tell you something. It didn't get better in the 2000s for a lot of people if you're poor. You know, the income
Well,
inequality
I'm
gap
sure
is
at
growing.
least seeing a black man as president, if you're a young black man living in the States, gives you more to aspire to.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the income inequality gap is growing. So what's happening? Because Barack Obama hired the same people who helped cause the financial crisis in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Because Barack Obama, for all of his good characteristics, and he has many, he wasn't that progressive in a lot of ways. He was still pretty middle right, economically speaking.
But maybe he was trying to play their game a bit, to fit it, because he knew he was the first black president,
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's. Well, I think Obama's a very smart person. Of course, he's a genius, and I think he's important and wonderful. And
at least he spoke with some class. Good Lord.
he did have
Compared
lots of
to
class.
the Trump years we've
He
been
had
having.
lots of class for sure. But
Yeah, I'm not an Obama diehard.
Yeah.
I'm not even American.
I'm
Like
just saying
I don't know enough about this shit to really speak from.
but I look at even our country. Like, where are we getting better? Where's the division? Where's the division? How's it getting better? There's still no clean drinking water. There's still this. There's still that. Why? The Liberal Party, what have they done? Like, they've done lots of stuff for some people, but
You're right. Legalizing weed doesn't seem that important when people don't have clean water to drink.
I mean, and they should.
And I was a big fan of legalizing
They
weed.
should have legalized weed, but I mean, at some point, is our healthcare system getting better? They've addressed the food issue, which is good. The food guide, which is nice. I kind of look at it like, and this is just my hill that I'm going to be on, is that there are a lot of pressing issues in every country around the world. In Canada, get it right with truth and reconciliation, which is a phrase that is overused and little acted upon. Get it right. Figure it out. Get it right. And with meaningful consultation. I
was just going to ask, what would that look like to you if you were
know.
I mean, obviously it's a broad question.
I mean, I don't know, but I think it starts with a whole bunch of conversation. But more than conversation, it's money properly spent,
allocated to the right.
Yeah, and also just like make big statements. I'm looking forward to the Prime Minister who says, "I want to do this for 4 years, and I'm going to do all the things that we need to do. I'm not going to be a career politician. Give me the majority and let's go change it."
Yeah.
Does the shit, doesn't worry about the popularity contest, doesn't play the game. The game is so boring. I get it, just make the changes.
Put your efforts where it counts, yeah.
I mean, everybody talks about how they want their country run like a business, which I don't think it should be. But if you want to run like a business, how would a business operate? If you want to get more people involved in the economy, give more people a chance to be in the economy. You want to spend less money on healthcare, get more people healthy. How do you get
Seems like a no-brainer, right?
No-brainer. All these super right-wing guys and women and there's so many of them who talk about how efficient and small government should run, but if they ran this country the way they ran businesses, like the good ones I'm saying, you would address all the root causes of your inefficiency. Address the root causes. Get less people in jail, more people in a healthcare situation, put more money into your healthcare situation so more people can get out and actually be members. Like
contributing,
one day a week we're going to hashtag a bunch of things for Let's Talk Day for a company that's probably already allocating that money anyway. So, like,
and then it just feels like a false gesture to a degree.
It's got to be every day.
Yeah.
It's got to be every day.
Well, it's the same, not to go too far out, but like it's kind of like Valentine's Day. You should love your wife every fucking day and do nice things and surprise her with shit just because you love her.
And I think Let's Talk Day has been great because people talk about it way more. I think it's great. But
it does help, yeah.
But the country, the government, it's make big changes. There should be no for-profit prisons. There should be, in my mind, because if you have companies making money off the incarceration of your people, they don't have any incentive to reduce recidivism. They don't.
And they have more incentive to try to arrest people and get them in there that might not actually be guilty.
And why is it that, on par, white people and people of color use drugs the same, on par, but why are some neighborhoods police more than other neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Fucking fix it.
Yeah.
Fucking fix it. Address the root causes of poverty. You can do it. Everybody knows how to do it. You can do it. But they don't want to do it.
Which is so strange because it's going to benefit them in the long run if they could pull their head out of their ass long enough to see that.
This is why I'm, and I'm not a cynic at all about it. This is where I'm very much just like, it's not easy. I'm not naive. But it is doable. You just have to get out there and push your agenda through. But your agenda has to be to include all of us.
Yep.
Your agenda can't just be yesterday's Canada. The biggest change in my life was when I stopped being a patriot. Like, I love being from this place, but this place isn't a thing to me unless it's a thing we achieve together. That's my view of it. And flags and borders and all that.
It's all divisive,
dude,
to begin with.
When you realize as a kid that South Africa, with apartheid, admired the Canadian residential school system and the Canadian reserve system,
whoa.
When you realize that they studied how Canada treated its Indigenous peoples, how Australia treated its Indigenous peoples, when you realize that, you're like, okay, so we're going to be bragging about coffee?
Yeah, really.
Bragging about our fucking beer? You know, what are we going to do? So, again, to me, it's all punk rock, man. It's all punk rock. You know, I'll never, I'll go to my grave with my fist.
I agree. Well, there's
tightly clenched.
Too much linked to patriotism and just following blindly that I just feel don't be a sheep. Like,
don't be a sheep.
I'm not trying to, shit on people that are in the armed services or anything like that.
Oh, of course. I love that.
Yeah, but
I was in it. I respect it.
But it's still like, when something big happens in wars and stuff, you still got to ask those questions. Like, are we going over there for the right reasons? And
well, listen, soldiers are never to blame for
no,
why
of
we
course,
go.
They're following
I'm
orders.
building, yeah. But you're right. Like, are we? I think we're doing a better job in Canada. That certainly,
yes.
We're doing certainly a better job in Canada.
But the big people calling the shots is what it always comes down to, whether we're talking military or politics or anything.
Yeah, it's got to be. I just think that. But again, I don't think the government or the companies are going to change that much. So I actually think it's up to us, and we can see if we can slowly move it forward.
Well, and people like you with your own, realm of influence.
Trying my best. I don't do everything right, but I also don't really I don't worry about getting everything right. I just pick the things that I think I can be effective in, and I work in that space.
Yeah.
I said this to a friend of mine today because we were talking about this with this idea of this dog rescue thing we're talking about, and somebody had said, if you do things right, you can save the world. And I was like, nah, fuck, we're not saving the world. Let's just save our neighborhood. Let's just save the neighborhood. Save our street. Not save it, but can we save this part on the street?
Yeah.
I don't have any ego about this at all. It's not like, can I accomplish it? It's not. It's like, this is just my duty as a human being. My duty is to go and work on behalf of others with whatever it is has been afforded to me. This career has given me a platform. I have used it to hopefully motivate people, but I recognize also alienating people. A lot of people liked it better when I didn't say this stuff, and that's cool. I appreciate the time that they gave to me when they did, but I'm on another path, right? And I want to be a part of a real meaningful change.
Keep trying to strive for the most benevolent outcome.
There's this fucking remember Ben Harper, the musician? He has this great line, life is short, and with your time, you best do well. There are good deeds and good intentions, and they're as far apart as heaven and hell.
Wow.
Good deeds. I don't care why. Good.
For the sake of doing them.
Fuck, if there's somebody drowning and you want to save them because you look good on TV, fucking save them.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to be in it for the right reason. Not everybody's going to be a good dude. Not everybody's going to be a cool girl, right?
But that person's not drowning anymore.
Or a cool, non-binary. Not every people are people.
Yeah.
But just fucking help. Dude, pick up something. Pick up a tool. Do what you can today. Just fucking do it. I actually really believe that that's the thing. I really. But of course, because I became the guy that was the TV and the radio thing. So my instrument is a microphone. I still do the work with my hands, but I have the microphone, and this is what I try to do with it.
Well, and I know you've touched countless people because I'm one of them. So
grateful.
I can only imagine the millions of people you've influenced and inspired.
I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you about it.
Thank you, man. I really
with your dad.
Yeah, my dad was a huge fan of yours, or is a huge.
No. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll lighten it up a little bit here with something we normally sort of wrap up the podcast with. I know you got stuff to do tomorrow, and this is just a fun question.
Cool.
We always ask people if they want to look at the wall for inspiration, but if you could be endowed with one superhuman power, and this is not a character, and no flying.
Rick.
To be Rick Campanelli.
No, not Rick Campanelli.
Oh,
because nobody can be Rick Campanelli. You have a poster there for Rick and Morty.
Oh, Rick and Morty. Okay.
See, this is what it all comes down to. Everything we've talked about today. Once you realize through all your experience in the multiverse that it's meaningless, what will you do? Rick is an adventurer.
Yeah.
Be like Rick.
Be free, spirited.
Be free. And Rick and Morty is the best show. What else you got on the wall here?
Oh, yeah, you didn't have to pick from here. I just meant if you could have any one superpower, specific, not a character even, but one ability besides flying, because it's kind of an obvious go-to.
Yeah, but flying was cold. Like, I wouldn't even want, I'm not...
Especially in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, breathe underwater would be nice.
I think we got that once before.
Yeah, breathe underwater. Like
Yeah, recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
breathing underwater.
Invisibility comes up every time almost.
There's so many ways to be invisible.
Yeah.
So I don't need that one necessarily. What would be? Has anybody picked strength, like superhuman strength?
I think someone toyed with it once, but it wasn't their last choice.
Strength is dope. To be strong.
Seems like an aggressive power to pick for a guy if you're wanting to fix the world. But hey, you could build villages and you could.
Well, this is my point.
Yeah.
It's not aggressive. It's protective.
How do you use that strength?
How do you use your strength? I'd like to be a fire starter just so that I could be like the Prodigy song, which I think is pretty cool. No, you know what? Whatever that inner anger that fucking Bruce Wayne has, that's the super.
You just want his grit?
Harness your grimness.
Okay.
Because I've read it like people, at his core, Bruce Wayne is optimistic. No, he's not.
No,
he's
and
not.
not since his parents died. I don't think he's ever really.
Fucking nihilist. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm a very positive nihilist. I think it's all meaningless, and I'm cool with it. Let's have a good time.
Man, I got to work on that.
What's the option? The option is being fucking miserable.
Yeah, it's something I've wrestled with, just the whole, dying thing. I guess after having kids and feeling like I'm getting a bit older, I got caught up for a couple of years. It was actually after my grandma died because I had no, frontline exposure to death. And I was 26 or 27 when she died. And it was the first real, person that I had a major sort of attachment
so lucky.
to. I know, of course,
Wow.
yeah. But am I lucky? Because people who learn how to deal with that at a younger formative age, it's not maybe so, it was... literally 3 years I was obsessing about death.
Do you want to know what it's going to be like when you die? I can tell you. You've already done it before you were born.
That is comforting. I've thought of that before.
You've done it.
Yeah.
You've done it.
You don't remember what it was like before you came out, so.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't fucking matter.
It's calming.
I know you got kids and all that, but they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Fucking lots of people die and the kids turn out to be fine. They figure it out.
And then your kids die one day.
Everybody fucking figures it out.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine.
Circle of life. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. That's the best part about this.
I just saw.
It doesn't matter.
A really dope. Do you follow, I don't know, Nature is Metal on Instagram?
No, but it is super metal.
Dude, look them up
Yeah.
tonight. It's all some of the videos are hard to watch because it's violent killings of other animals and shit.
Yeah.
But I saw one and today, I believe, and it was a possum, a dead possum's clutching hand with these fantastic purple mushrooms growing from his decaying corpse.
Amazing.
And this great write-up just on the whole,
Nature is so metal.
it's crazy. Yeah, follow them tonight, man. I'm telling you.
I don't think I would be the person I am today if it wasn't for metal. Discovering metal, well, not discovering metal. Metal exists.
More so than punk?
Well, to me, they're the same thing. I know that there's a big
Or two
division
sides of
between
the
the
same
two.
coin.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
really are to me. It was aggression. It was also this idea, metal taught me that you're disenfranchised and you're right to be, because fuck them. Punk taught me you're disenfranchised, you're right to be, fuck them, now let's start a fire.
Some hip-hop as well.
Yeah, early hip-hop was like
Yeah.
that for me.
NWA and shit, obviously.
Yeah.
It was fuck the man.
Yeah, NWA was amazing. Oh my God. I mean, you sit back and listen to some of those songs now. They're so fucking misogynistic and they're so homophobic.
It doesn't all age well.
Yeah, it doesn't age well. But sometimes, and again, no excuse for the behavior, but sometimes you got to put things in context. You're 18-year-old kids, Compton, different era, different time. Doesn't excuse any of it, but it helps me understand it.
Yeah.
But what they did, NWA, changed the world. And that's a real music world, right? But it changed culture. NWA are the reason why hip-hop is the number one hip music in the world today. Because NWA got into the fucking president's mind. And George Bush, the first one, was ripping on them. They were the world's most dangerous band. A title that used to belong to metal, punk, and rock bands now belong to a rap band. Because metal got...
They were all strapped, too, probably, right?
metal got soft, right? Metal got soft in the late 80s. I'm talking about the mainstream. Thank God fucking Norway was holding it down and was going to give... I'm wearing a Mayhem shirt right now.
Yeah.
Norway brought the burn, right? I love that. But in America, rap music got into the head of the president. And...
The white president, nonetheless,
The whitest, perhaps.
Yeah, the whitest.
The whitest from the whitest family, for sure. But what NWA did, really it's Ice-T, right? And Ice-T starts it with 6 a.m.
Or Ice Cube, no?
No, Ice-T.
Oh, you're
Ice-T,
right,
yeah.
you're right. Sorry, yeah.
Ice-T puts out
I just saw that on the documentary.
Yeah,
actually.
so he puts out 6 a.m. That changed the game. There were other cats doing stuff, Schoolie D. People were doing things, but Ice-T's the guy that really kind of reached everybody else in LA because what he brought South Central to the game.
Yeah.
He brought LA to the game.
And he was telling it how the streets were and what kind of shit they were in.
Totally. I was just driving down the road 3-4 days ago in my El Camino, and I drove right past an intersection that Ice-T used to rap about. And it was like, my God, this is amazing, right? So Ice-T, and I think NWA, and even though, other bands kind of held on and did the thing, and hip-hop took a long time after that to really become the dominant music force in the culture, but it came. And I think you can point a lot of it back to NWA and this enormous vat of kerosene they poured on the scared white
rocked
America.
the boat for sure.
Dude, they fucking dropped live wires into the lake. It was game changing for everybody. And what's funny? You probably already know this. I don't know if they got to this point in the film in the movie show you're watching. I was playing hockey in LA for with these crew of Canadians down there. There's this one dude from Winnipeg, and I knew his name, Brian. And I look over one day and I see his last name and I said, wait a minute, are you Brian Turner? And he said, yeah. And I said to him, like Brian Turner Priority Records? And he says, yeah, you heard of Priority Records? And I said, bro, you signed NWA. If you saw Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
He was the guy.
Paul Giamatti's character?
No, he was this other guy who was in the roller rink, kind of nodding his head along. Remember in the movie when when Ice Cube shows up with a baseball bat and smashes the office?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's Brian. That's
it's
a guy from Winnipeg who signed them. That never happened, by the way. That never happened. And when Ice Cube audited Brian Turner, they found out that not only Brian Turner gave him everything he was owed, gave him more.
Oh.
Brian Turner kept it clean. Kid from Winnipeg is the one that signed NWA, the one that took the chance. So not only did they do what they did, but it was a Canadian guy.
That's an awesome little connection there.
Yeah, and he's been a genius because he doesn't talk about it. It's like he's not in the public eye. He lives a great life. He probably doesn't want to say it. Keeps it low key, but his name's on the record. He's also a great guy.
But you sniffed him out, of course.
I just was looking at him one day and I just thought, I think you're the guy. But also in that circle, those hockey player guys in LA, they didn't really know. They'd heard of NWA, but I used to drive to Buffalo to buy import records of Priority because they wouldn't even sell them in Canada.
Because of the content?
I don't know. I don't know what the reason was. Maybe he didn't have a distro deal here or something, distribution, but Canadian.
Should.
And also, and I'll leave you with this idea that Ice Cube said, and we were young when we heard it, he said, fuck crossing over to them, make them cross over to us.
That's the right attitude to leave this one on, I think, man. Mm-hmm. Thank you for crossing over here.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, we always high five at the end. Boom.
Do you know how the high five started? Have you heard that story?
No, but please.
I'm not going to tell you, but I want you to look it up.
I'll look it up.
Glenn Burke, openly gay baseball player I think he was playing for the Oakland Athletics at the time, back in the day, essentially invented the high five.
Coined the high five?
Essentially, yeah. And it's just really amazing. We'll look it up on YouTube
afterwards. I got to
afterwards.
check this out, yeah.
Glenn
I feel like there might have been a caveman high five somewhere. But
perhaps,
yeah.
But as far as
documented.
If no pictures, didn't happen. Glenn Burke.
Everyone should check it out.
Totally.
All right, yo, thank you so much, man.
Hey, thank you, bud. Was that cool?
That was beyond cool, dude. Oh, my God. No, dude.